Go ahead and get started with roll call.
Board Member Kim? Oh, sorry. Here. Board Member Odorcio?
Here.
Board Member Holscher?
Here.
Vice Chair Rosner?
Here.
Chair Chung?
Here. And before we get started on the first item on this evening's agenda, I just wanted to, because I think we haven't had a meeting in a little bit, I wanted to publicly thank Jim Allott, who's no longer on the board, for giving his time for the last few years as a board member. He was on the DRB many years ago and decided to return. And again, this is a volunteer job, so the time that he spent here was very much appreciated. In the same breath, I'd like to also welcome the newest member of our Design Review Board, Phoebe Holscher, who I have gotten a chance to know as a member of the community, but also has presented to this board many times. So with that, we'll lead into oral communications this evening for any items, or anybody that would like to address anything that is not on this evening's Design Review Board agenda. If you have anything that you would like to address that's not on this evening's agenda, please come forward, or if you're on the Zoom call, if you could use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and we'll let you into the meeting.
There are no hands raised on Zoom.
All right, thank you. And with that, we move to staff briefing.
Good evening, board members. I also wanted to thank Jim Allott for his service on the board. And we will miss him. He was a great addition to our board. We also welcome Phoebe Holscher to the board, and I'm excited for her to begin. And we're working on getting her trained up and hopefully giving her all the things that she needs. And I would like to let the board, the second item is I'd like to let the board know that we did go to town council last night on an appeal on 21 Mara Vista. They have remanded that back to DRB. I don't know when we're going to bring that back to you, but we'll be bringing it back. They asked us to work with the appellant and the applicant to arrive perhaps at a solution. I don't know what that will be, but it had mostly to do with the deck at the second story that was adjacent to 25 Mara Vista. So I just thought you should know that might be coming to a meeting near you. So, and with that, I think we have a full agenda tonight, so that's all I have.
All right, thank you. Moving right along to the minutes. We are looking to adopt the minutes from the February 6th Design Review Board meeting. Is there a motion there?
I make a motion to approve the minutes.
A second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And with that, we adopt the minutes from the February 6th Design Review Board meeting. And we move to the first public hearing for this evening, which is item PH1, 15 Acela Drive. If the applicant could please come forward. The format that we'll be using for all of our public hearings this evening is the applicant will be afforded 20 minutes to present their project, at which point we might have some questions, but we will definitely open it up to the public. And each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to address any concerns that you might have. And then the applicant will then have 5 minutes at the end to address any of the public comment. And with that, floor is yours.
Before they start, let me make sure they have all the, do they need that? Oh, you only want this one up? Okay, I'm sorry. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is David Asan. This is my wife, Parizad Asan. My name is David Asan. This is my wife, Parizad Asan, and we are the owners of 15 Acela. We are very excited about this project. This is going to be our forever home. All the little mistakes, issues we have at our current home, we've hopefully resolved it and made this home ready for a retirement. Being on one level and upper level, we're met with our neighbors extensively. I think we work well with the community. This is a perfect design for this particular site, and we're very excited to get started on our project, and we'll look forward for a favorable review from your committee. We wanted to introduce our architect who's worked diligently with us on this project, Mrs. Adrienne.
And I would like to say something too. For the longest time, we were thinking about finding another house that would have our master bedroom on the same level. Right now where we live, our master bedroom is on the second level. So we were looking for a house that would would be able to have a bedroom on the first level where your entrance is, because I already have some neurological problems that I need to work on regarding that. So anyhow, so we looked and finally we found this property, but it's pretty run down. So we want to build our new house. You know, it's our retirement home, like retirement house. So it was very important for us that we build it the way it's supposed to be. Our architect will tell us.
All right, thank you.
Just a little. Yeah, the old eyes aren't what they used to be. Yes, thank you. Well, happy Nowruz. It's our Persian New Year's today. And my name is Mohammed Sadria. I'm the architect of this project. We're requesting permission to demo the existing home at 15 Acela, which is in very bad shape right now, and build a new 3,995 square foot home with a 650 square foot garage. Because this is a downslope site, we've located the public areas of the home as well as the master bedroom suite on the upper level in order to provide outdoor living space for these public areas and to adhere to the town principles for stepping buildings down the slope. We've used the roof of the secondary bedrooms and the ADU for a deck facing the views. In order to protect the views of our uphill neighbors, we have dug the whole site down about 2 feet so that the maximum proposed roof is actually lower than the existing ridgeline of the current home. This lowering of the home also allows us to develop a backyard with a pool on the downslope. We've met with our adjacent neighbors, and based on their sign-off letters and letters of support, they are generally in support of the project. Our neighbor to the left was concerned about construction noise and other construction-based impacts. We've met with them and discussed these with them, and we were hoping to discuss it further this week when we found out that they were still concerned, but they were not feeling well and couldn't make a meeting. We assured them that they would be notified well in advance regarding the timing and duration of demolition and excavation, and that we would install a construction fence covered with fabric around the property during construction. The site would also be watered to control dust. We have a team of well-regarded structural engineers and civil engineers that will ensure that there will be no damage to the adjacent property. We decided to convert part of the existing driveway to landscaping because currently there's a turnaround driveway. And so we eliminated that. The reason we converted it to landscaping is to decrease the hardscape on the site. The trees that are being proposed to be removed are primarily pines, which the fire department in Tiburon deems to be a fire hazard, and many of them have also grown up into our neighbors' views. The reason for the request for a variance is that with only 15% coverage available on this site, the only way to avoid exceeding 50% was to stack 2 stories on top of each other. This would have been a non-starter because the second story would block our uphill neighbors' views. And 2-story stacked building would also violate the town's design guidelines, which require a stepped building on a sloped site. Also, many neighbors have requested variances in this neighborhood for the same reason. Also, much of the additional coverage is caused by the rear patio and pool. Currently, the existing home has two nonconformities, one related to coverage and one relating to side yard setback. With this proposal, we are eliminating the side yard setback nonconformity. The home is tucked into the hillside quite substantially. The earth tone colors and use of natural materials for some walls as accents should blend nicely into the site. From the public thoroughfare, the public will see only a low-slung, articulated one-story building. Thank you if you have any questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the applicant or the architect? All right. Oh,
Could you discuss the relationship of the new building and the power lines and what the plan is to do with the power lines?
Yes, great question. We are working diligently with with PG&E to underground those power lines, and we're well along. David, how far along are we with that?
Step 10 of 20 steps, I believe. It's taken us 9 months to get this far. We have gotten the contract signed off.
if you could come up just because we're recording, just so you can speak in the mic.
So there are two utility poles in this property, one in the front yard on the street, one in the middle to the rear of the property. I've been working with PG&E for the past 9 months to try to underground these utility lines, and it's been an unbelievable process. But we've gotten to the point where we've gotten actually estimates, we've gotten some bids from people to come for the trenching, and I believe we're in about phase 10 of 20 phases. The next phase is for them to give me an estimate on the cost of the undergrounding on their end to compare the two bids, and then we're going to start on undergrounding. So our eventual goal is to underground the utility poles.
Any other questions?
Question. Okay, hi. I'm not sure if you're going to be able to answer this because it's more of a landscape question, but there is a group of trees, I believe, referred to as MC, and I could not find that on the key. Did somebody else see that? Those are around the perimeter, and I'm curious how tall those grow and what kind of foliage they offer.
Unfortunately, our landscape
Yeah,
designer is not here, but
yeah, okay.
Please. Yeah.
sure.
Those are going to be evergreens that are going to be very, very short because once again, the neighbor to the 14 Acela actually looks through that view corridor. So we were going to keep those really, really short. The goal for that is to kind of just make to make the fence go away, to be a green fence more than anything else. They're not supposed to be elevated in height.
Okay, between you and 17?
Actually, they're really on both sides. They're
That- yeah,
both on
that's-
14 and on 7. They're the same exact stuff, exactly.
Okay, great.
Actually, could stay, because I have a landscaping question as well. Excuse me, on the other side, in between your property and 11, there's a pretty substantial pine. It might be this double pine called out that you're removing. I'm also trying to look at the key, like generally what's gonna be replaced in between your property and 11 from like the vantage point of they have kind of a patio and then your pool. And there's currently a lot of screening there, which I know you're removing, but what's the height and what kind of plants are going to be providing screening there?
So the goal for those plants, once again, is to provide protection, but not to block the views. I know on the 17 side, they actually do not want those to grow very tall. And I know on the 11th side, they actually want to have some structure and some height to that. So we're going to get those balanced out properly to make sure those neighbors are happy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? All right, with that, we're going to open it up to the public. So if you are here to comment on this application, if you could please come forward. and you'll have 3 minutes. Doesn't look like anybody in the room, so if we could go to the Zoom call, if there's anybody on the Zoom call that's interested in commenting on this project?
Chair Chung, there's no public comment from Zoom.
Okay. With that, the applicant does have additional 5 minutes if you'd like. Not? Any final questions from the board before we close it to the public? All right, with that, we'll close it to the public and bring it back to the board. Would anybody like to lead us off on this one? Suzanne?
I just wanted to welcome Phoebe. Um, I went around the site and I know that they're asking for a variance, but I think the site variance, lot coverage variance, and I think a lot of that is because of the hardscaping that's happening. And the other, I can't remember the other variance that they're looking for. I thought that there was a site. No, I thought it was a site, but I'm getting a couple of them mixed up. So I think I can make the findings, the 4 findings that we have to make for the lot coverage variance because it is a sloping site and because of it's not a self-created hardship and all that stuff, so you can't really quit it right now, but I think I can make all the 4 findings as required.
Jim?
Just so the board knows, there was only one variance on this.
Okay, it was,
particular project.
okay.
Yes,
It's the other one that had the side variance. So,
that's
okay,
correct.
thank you.
I thought it was a very smart plan proposal, supported it completely.
Excellent.
Thank you. Okay. I also support it, and with sloping sites up in the hills of Tiburon, I think it's really important to be able to engage the house to the exterior environment. And I think on a hillside, the only way to do that is to terrace it down. And to avoid lot coverage, you have to be under 3 feet for your walls, and that's impossible on a site this sloped. So I think it's a really good way to be able to benefit and enjoy the property and make the most out of the property. So those are my reasons, and I support it.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I think it's a really beautiful design on a pretty complex site. I spent a lot of time actually at 11, the neighbor today, and actually bringing it, forward a little bit, the rear, like cutting it down a little bit, bringing it a little lower. I think it's going to actually enhance the view from 11. So it's always nice to see, a project, an applicant does a project and it enhances the views of the neighbors. And I think I agree. I'm not that worried about the screening. It's their pool. They're going to want privacy. I think the neighbors are going to work that out pretty well. So just great design all in general. And yeah, I could make the findings for the variances given the slope and just the hardscapes that are really adding to that. So there's no issues with that for me.
Oh, and I forgot to add that I did read the letters, and I think our purview as a design review board is to talk about the actual final product and not how it gets there. I think that's more of the building department. I think we can make. I'm sympathetic to the issues of construction, but I think we're not really empowered to really talk about that. So just wanted to address that.
All right. Thanks. My comments are along the same lines as my fellow board members, and can also support the variance. So with that, it looks like we'd be looking for a motion to approve the draft resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve the draft resolution and that it's categorically exempt from CEQA.
Do we have a second?
And that you can make all the findings. Thank you.
And then we can make the findings for the 4 findings for the variance as well. Sorry.
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. And with that, the motion carries, and we move on to the next item on this evening's agenda, which is 8 Old Landing Road. The applicant could come forward.
Hello. Good evening, everybody. My name is Laura Bush, and I'm presenting on behalf of both property owners at 8 Old Landing Road, Sherman Sue and Sammy Yang. Sherman is here with me tonight, and ourselves at 10 Old Landing Road, Chris and Laura Bush. This presentation addresses the variance request for the height of a shared side fence between our two properties as detailed in item PH2 of your agenda. Before I get started, I wanted to thank the staff who have helped us with this application, especially Sam Bonifaccio and Chris Wyek. The staff report is very thorough. I was impressed. And I also wanted to thank you, the Design Review Board, for your service to the town. So where do we live? We are located just off of Paradise Drive, tucked away at the intersection of Trestle Glen. It's pretty close to the fire station. Old Landing Road is on a steep slope leading down from Paradise to the bay. The buildings on the road date back to the 50s before incorporation into the town of Tiburon. My house at 10 Old Landing Road was built in 1965, and 8 Old Landing Road was constructed in 1998. The area is densely vegetated with many mature trees. The slide simply illustrates the location of our two properties, 10 Old Landing and 8 Old Landing, in relation to each other. As you can see, they're adjacent residential properties sharing a boundary line. The little red line on the survey map indicates the location of the variance we're discussing today. So the existing situation that we're looking to solve here. Currently, there's a 6-foot metal fence existing between our properties. We don't know when it was built, but I suspect it was put in when 8 Old Landing was built in 1998. Unfortunately, this fence is broken and needs replacement. This is primarily due to decades-old ivy weighing it down. We conducted a property survey in summer of 2024, and this revealed a crucial detail. The existing fence is not located on the correct property line. So our intention is to demolish this old fence and construct a new wooden fence that will be primarily located on the correct surveyed property line. However, the fence will need to deviate slightly from the property line in a specific area to accommodate existing hardscape on my side of the property, 10 Old Landing Road, specifically a concrete path and some retaining walls that you can see in this picture. This deviation from the property line is fully agreed upon between us and our neighbors at 8 Old Landing, and after we put the fence in, it will be recorded as an easement. So here is the topographic map of our property. The existing fence is drawn as the top edge of the map, and the true property line is shown in orange. As you can see, the fence is in completely the wrong place. We don't know why it was put there, but I suspect it's in relation to the topography of the site. I think it was placed there because this is the crest of the slope, and this positioning makes most sense based on the fact that 10 Old Landing Road is actually overlooked. However, we do want to put the fence now closer to the property line. As I have mentioned, it will deviate slightly to accommodate some hardscaping on our side, and we'll record this as an easement once the fence is in place. So the area of the deviation here is also where we're requesting the design review, and it's due to the slope. You can see the contours on the topographic map being very close together, indicating a steep slope. So, as I said, the primary reason for our variance request is the significant slope and difference in elevation between our properties in the area where the new fence will be situated. This is a picture from my patio looking up towards the existing ivy-laden fence. Our property at 10 Old Landing Road is located 15 to 20 feet below the crest of this slope, where the existing fence is currently misplaced. Moving the fence down towards the correct property line will result in the fence being 5 to 10 feet lower on the slope relative to our property. This is approximately shown by the red line I've drawn on the picture. This lower fence line would lead to a significant loss of privacy for our home, particularly our patio area, due to direct overlooking from the higher elevation of the 8 Old Landing Road property. So this is our solution. To directly address and mitigate this substantial loss of privacy, resulting from the necessary relocation of the fence on the sloping terrain, we are requesting a variance for a specific section of the fence to be 8 feet tall. This 8-foot section, approximately 55 feet long, will be between our houses as indicated on the survey map and topographical map included in your package. Importantly, part of this 8-foot fence will be adjacent to some existing wooden retaining walls on our property at 10 Old Landing Road. These retaining walls range in height from 17 to 26 inches. In these specific short sections where the 8-foot fence is close to the retaining walls, the combined height of the fence and the retaining walls will not exceed 11 feet. The remainder of the 8-foot section will be on regular ground and will have a total height of 8 feet. The variance request is fundamentally justified by the unique topography of our properties and the significant difference in elevation. The 8-foot fence is necessary to maintain the existing level of privacy that we have enjoyed and that is common for many other properties in the vicinity. The specific section of fence is primarily visible only to our 2 properties and is not easily seen from the road or other properties due to the slope and mature trees. We did explore the possibility of growing screening vegetation, but this is not a viable alternative due to the fact that it is a heavily shaded north-facing slope, which receives very little direct sunlight, making it extremely difficult to establish vegetation. Crucially, both neighbors, the Su Yang family at 8 Old Landing and ourselves at 10 Old Landing, are in full agreement with this proposed design and placement, and there are no objections from any other neighbors. And finally, I want to assure the board that no trees will be harmed or moved and no grading is needed as part of this project. So to conclude, we believe that the strict application of the 6-foot fence height limit in this specific situation, given the topographical challenges and the necessary relocation of the fence, would create a practical difficulty and unnecessary hardship by significantly reducing the privacy we currently have. This would deprive us of privileges enjoyed by other properties in the vicinity. Granting this variance will not constitute a special privilege that is inconsistent with limitations on other properties in the vicinity, as the request is directly related to the unique and challenging topography of our shared property line. Many properties in the vicinity have fences and retaining walls. The proposed 8-foot fence in this specific area will not be detrimental to public welfare or injurious to other properties in the vicinity. In fact, it will help maintain a harmonious relationship between neighbors by ensuring adequate privacy. The visibility of the fence from other properties would be minimal. So therefore, on behalf of both the Su Yang family at 8 Old Landing and our family at 10 Old Landing Road, we respectfully request the Design Review Board's approval of our variance application. Thank you for listening. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Any questions from the applicant? No. All right, with that, we'll open it up to the public. If you are here to speak on this project, if you could please come forward. And we'll also go to the Zoom call. If you're on the Zoom call and wish to speak about 8 Old Landing Road, please use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the screen.
There are no public comments on the Zoom audience.
And the applicant does have an additional 5 minutes that you don't have to use if you don't want, but all right, with that, we will close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to the board.
I have a question for staff real quick. It seems like this application is just for a section of the fence. What's the status of the rest of the presumably 6-foot fence? Has that been approved? Is it?
Yeah, it's an exemption. It's accepted from it. So let me get to this section here. There are 3 sections. One is 6 foot, one is 8, but complies with the exception that we have.
Okay.
So it doesn't need a variance. So only this portion does.
And that has been approved already?
Yes.
Through staff?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
I just had to have my cheat sheet, sorry.
All right. Would you like to lead us off?
Yeah, I mean, I visited the site, both sites. Thanks very much. I can make the findings for the variance request given the topography and the existing structures and the encroachment, which I would just like to say it's really nice to see neighbors working together when there are encroachments that have, you know, probably 50 years old. So it's really good to see you guys work together on that.
I agree. I can support it.
I had one question. Does the design review board ever make comments on easements? Or is that,
It's not really in your purview, but
right, that's what I
yeah,
thought. I just
yeah.
want to make sure. No, I support it. Yeah.
It's really, really nice. And I really do appreciate that there's an easement agreement that's going to be in place as well. So I can support the variance, and it's very steep there. So
And I feel the same way. I had a chance to see it from both 8 and 10, and it's great to see neighbors working together on a solution, and can definitely make the findings based on the steep topography of the lot. So with that, it looks like we'd be looking for a motion to adopt the draft resolution that's been prepared.
I'll do a third. I move to make a motion to adopt the draft resolution, and that we can make the findings for the variance, and that it's categorically exempt from CEQA.
And do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I
Opposed? None. And with that, the resolution passes, or the motion passes, and we move on to the next item on this evening's agenda, which is PH 3 4 Owlswood Road. If the applicant could come forward.
Good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Anne Farrell, and I'm here on behalf of Courtney and Vasily, who live at 4 Owlswood. To dive right into it, this is 4 Owlswood here, as you can see. It's this is their parking area. They have a 2-car carport in front of their house, and the entrance to their house is by these exterior stairs that wrap around to the side. The application obviously is to convert, to backtrack, is to convert this existing car deck into a 2-car garage with a little bit of storage area off to the side. So that's what we're here about today. As a little bit of a backstory, Owlswood Road is a private road located in the hills above Tiburon Boulevard. It's, as you can see, a steeply terraced neighborhood with views overlooking the Belvedere Lagoon. Number 4 Owlswood is this one here. As you can see, it's located on a private spur off of Owlswood that only serves itself and 2 other properties down the road. Owlswood is located, that residence itself is located 8 feet below the carport. And again, you can kind of see the stairs right off to the side. So it's 8 feet, the actual living area is 8 feet below the roadway. It's also important to note that the Owlswood itself, the road, is largely on the subject parcel in an easement. There's a 17-foot easement in the front of the house. And that this is on a 39% downslope lot. 2 other things I want to point out is that it's been pointed out by neighbors, or there's been a misconception that this area over here is actually part of Owlswood. And I will explain that in the subsequent slide, but it is not. There is a 25-foot roadway easement that goes up here. Owlswood is actually a substandard lot for the zoning that it is. It's just this little area right there. So it's quite actually close to the property line over there, just to let you know. And I do want to point out that all of these houses on Owlswood have garages attached. This is the only house that does not. So this is the site plan for Owlswood. As I mentioned, you can see it's quite close over on this side of the property. I have the exact dimensions. You can ask if you want, but it is at one point only 26 feet, and it's not even 15 feet back from the roadbed here, as you can see. So the proposal is for a 2-car garage that's going to be sitting in the location of the current car deck with a little bit of a storage bustle off the side. Obviously the homeowner's desire is to be able to safely park their cars in a protected area and provide for storage for things that other people put in their garage. Courtney and Vasily are avid e-bike riders. I'm sure you know they weigh 60 to 70 pounds, those e-bikes do. There is no storage space in this house. They currently are pulling their e-bikes down the stairs and putting them in the laundry room, which is partially below this area of the car deck. There's no other storage space anywhere else. There's limited access on the lowest level to the crawl space. And as I mentioned before, this is the roadway easement, as you can see. And the reason why we're here today primarily is because the way the front yard setbacks are determined, it's by the edge of the roadbed, not by the property line. This is the proposed plan. As you can see, it's not a big garage. We're just talking about a 2-car garage, 19 by 19, which is actually a little bit less than your 20-foot standard garage, with a little bit of a storage space on the side where they can park 2 e-bikes and a little bit of storage. I just wanted to point out, this is the section, the proposed section. The house is characterized by a steeply or a monoslope shed roof. That is the defining characteristic of this house. And so in play with that, what we've proposed is a monoslope roof over the garage, sloping up from the roadway to come above the existing ridge by about 4 feet. It's important to note that this does 2 things. Besides matching the context of the house and the aesthetics of the existing house in a way that complements it, it looks nice. It also reduces the mass of the garage at the street front. We've kept this as low as humanly possible with allowing a garage door and a steel beam that you would need for a large garage door. So it slopes up. Again, that will reduce the mass at the front, where at the back, it's just a little bit above the existing ridge to try and mimic the vocabulary of the existing house. On this slide, you'll see the proposed elevation next to, or proposed section next to the existing over here. So I just want to show you that the existing carport here, again, 8 feet above the floor below. It's only a 7-foot head clearance in the laundry area below where they're storing their bikes. And the actual ridge itself is only a little bit, it's 8'6" to the peak of the existing ridge. So if one were to ask, well, could you match that elevation? The answer would be no. We don't have the head clearance to be able to do that. And aesthetically, it creates a very unattractive profile. It is important to note that we've had extensive meetings with Sam. We've considered alternatives for this location. Just to point out a couple, as I mentioned, there is no room on the left of this house. There's just not enough room between this and the property line to put a garage over there. We did consider an ADU with a garage, which, as you know, is allowed without planning review as long as it meets the codes on this side of the site. That was the first thing we discussed. We also did discuss attaching or a semi-detached garage that would be adjacent to the existing car deck. There's an advantage in this in that it provides additional parking beyond the 2 while also providing storage. Of course, the advantage of the ADU is that it provides additional living space. But I want to say that we actually did not pursue these because, first of all, an attached garage would be the preferable option. It's convenient. The whole point is to be able to take things from your car and store it somewhere conveniently located, but also because we deemed that this was actually had a less impact on the neighborhood if it is directly in front of the house. Whereas if you put something downside, that is an entirely new structure with an ADU 16 feet tall, that would be a significant impact to the community. There have been a lot of objections raised by this community, which came as a little bit of a surprise to me. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about that. So contextually speaking, going back, the objections were basically on twofold. One was loss of personal views or projective views, and the other was loss of property value to the surrounding residences. That was in the original letter that was submitted. To address that, I just want to show this is the context of garages in the Owls View area. So again, every house has a garage. every house has an attached garage. Some of them are quite tall with residences above them. And most of them are two-car garages, sort of the height and context of what we're proposing. It is important to note that 6 Ellswood, which is the next house down the road from this property, both greatly exceeds the variances, the setback, and actually is taller than the garage that we proposed. 7 Ellswood, which is up the street, actually has been approved to convert this from a 2-car to a 4-car garage, and this one is currently under construction. So it's clear that people value garages in this neighborhood. This is not a unique request. This is sort of renderings of the proposed garage that we've mentioning. Again, keeping it low at the front, raising up subtly towards the back. To note that the existing shed is a 4-in-10 slope. This is a 2-in-10 slope. So I'm not even trying to match the steepness, but I am trying to refer to the monoslope nature of the existing roof. So to talk about view obstruction, I do want to speak specifically to some of the houses in the neighborhood. So to start specifically, this is number 5 Owlswood. So I'm going to go down and show you, but they're one of the people who've supported numerous letters, including, I believe, the letter that came in last night. As you can see, this house is significantly far away from our site. It is uphill on a crest, and as you can tell, it's oriented towards the west, which is Mount Tam. So if you go to this is number 5 Owlswood. Oh, I'm reverbing. This is number 5 Owlswood. I'm going to keep talking. So as you can see, that's Mount Tam in the back. And
Yeah, let me pause your time for a second. If we can. Yeah.
Pause that.
I've got the pause on mine. You can probably see this still happening. Test it.
can I do what?
Test it to see it's.
Am I still reverbing?
Yeah.
Well, echo, 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 echo.
Is what, someone on mute?
Someone on the meeting.
Oh, someone on the meeting that unmuted?
Not fully at the deck? Oh, goodness.
garage project will allow our neighbors to retain their in-home views and we have not received any single objection from any of our neighbors that claims any lost views from inside their homes. This garage will not impact anything that it views from inside their home. And that their objections, a few of their objections, all of them are just based solely on the desire to preserve the roadway view, their driveway view, or from remote gardens. It's deeply frustrating for me. I find their objections unreasonable, inconsistent with local planning and zoning regulations, and really unfair. They all haven't improved their homes, many have improved their garages, and in fact, one is currently doubling. As a tax-paying homeowner, I understand that I have the right to improve my property as long as improvements comply with Tiburon's residential zoning rules. Denying reasonable improvement request on our roadway, the driveway, okay, sorry, this is, I have to start again. So I understand that I have the right to improve the property as long as the improvements comply with Tiburon's residential zoning rules. Denying our reasonable home improvement request based on views from the roadway, the driveway, or remote garden areas would not follow the code for residential neighborhoods and would set a problematic precedent that would use to block nearly any development in Tiburon in zoning areas for residential development. I appreciate the planning department. I appreciate Samantha. We have tried to work in the best interest of the neighborhood, and that I hope that you consider our request as being fair, as the planners support us, as well as some of the neighbors. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant before we open it up?
I just wanted to ask the board if we could take a moment after this to figure out why this echo is happening, as you can hear. If you could just break after you're done here, before we start public comment. Thank you.
Any questions for the applicant? No? All right, before we take public comment, we're going to try to fix our technical difficulties.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so unless they have questions, we vacate this.
Is this making an echo? Yeah.
I'm not muted though.
I'm going to talk again. Is it echoing? No?
Sorry, everyone. Is it echoing from here? Is it echoing from here? No answer.
Yeah, we'll wait for a few people back. Wait till when do that? You want that before they?
Maybe the front image on the screen?
That one? That's
perfect. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Thank you for your patience. Just give us 1 second here. Is my mic doesn't sound like it's on tonight. What's that? Huh? Is it on? All right. Just speak loud. Is that good? There we go. All right, and we're back. Thank you for your patience while we work through our technical difficulties. So now we're going to open it up to public comment. If you'd like to speak on this project. I'm sorry, actually, we had a question for staff before we.
Yeah,
go
I
to
just have
public
one quick
comment.
question for staff, because I'm seeing some just differences in, with the plans and the staff report. The current, on the plans, it says that the front setback, there's no change, but on the plans, but on the staff report, there is the existing condition, is the carport in the setback, or is there a change in the setback? Like, is it currently non-conforming? The carport currently non-conforming? Or is it a new?
The
variance request?
driveway? Are you trying to, the new carport, or you,
No, so in the plans.
what page are you on, if I might ask?
Well, I'm on the cover page
Okay.
of the plans, and it says that there's, the existing is, it says the proposed front setback, there's no change. In the staff report, there is a change of, 20 feet. So I think I just want to understand, is the existing carport a non-conformance and considered in the setback, and there has been a previous variance approval in 2006 or whatever for that carport, or
Carport's the
I
driveway.
I don't think carports, but that's
It would be considered a driveway, so it's not,
okay.
yeah, once you put the structure in there, we're talking about the encroachment into a setback, therefore needing a variance.
Okay, so it is a new variance request.
Yes,
It's not
yes,
because there's changes to an existing non-conforming.
That's
Those are
correct.
two different things.
that's
Okay.
correct, yes.
All right, thank you.
Can I ask a question to the applicant? I'm sorry, I'm a little blind. So I was looking at the section. So if you go from the plate height to the interior section of the new garage, the high point, what is that? What is that
Yeah, if you
height?
could bring just if you could come back up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
I can't do the math. Can you do it for me?
It's marked on the section, but
Can't see it.
can I actually also say that actually I do believe that there was an existing variance before, because the carport itself, but there's structure below the carport, which would be in the front yard setback.
Okay.
So my understanding, and I apologize because this might have been a mistake on my title sheet, because I was originally reading the setback from the property line, and Samantha corrected me to say that it could not be reading from that. And I think I might not have mopped up my sloppiness on my title sheet. But just to be clear, the building is existing non-conforming, is the way I was told.
got it.
And I'm sorry if that's not correct.
Because the structure's underneath it, but I was talking with the driveway itself, so putting the carport on there is a variance in itself. It's not associated with the other one.
No, this here, there's structure below this structure here.
Right, oh, I see, yes, so there was a variance to be able to put that. I was answering it.
Okay.
I was not understanding your question. I'm very sorry about that. I was understanding, are you asking if the driveway itself was encroaching, but no, okay. So
So-
there is a variance for that structure below because it is within the front yard setback,
Okay.
but it's as if this is the roof to it,
That's
is where
right,
the
that's
driveway
right,
is.
okay.
Right.
So I see 11-foot one striking that section. So that's that's the highest point then.
That is correct.
And then at the lowest point, it's 7 feet. Or
No, I'm sorry, the
The-
door is 7 foot, and then I'd have a 1 foot header over the door. So the low point interior would be 8 feet.
got it. Okay.
Got it?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions for the applicant or staff?
And did you look at other design with the slope? Does it make significant impact if you came down from 11.1?
So I did look at it. I thought about bringing those, but I didn't. If I bring it down slightly, it still works. It just starts to look a little stumpy because like when you get below a 2 and 10 or a 2 and 12, it doesn't have the same impact. And the designing feature of this house is that projecting eave. And I don't know if you looked at it, it's actually shaped like a sail. So, so I just would like to try and preserve that aesthetic of sort of this sail that comes over it. But a subtle change, I think, would still work.
Any other questions? All right, now let's open up public comments. If you have a comment on this application, if you could come forward, if you could state your name and your address and keep your comments at 3 minutes.
Yeah, I'm Carolyn Wendler. I'm at 6 Owlswood Road. I would like to correct a few things that have been said. There's some history here that seems to have been glossed over. We were there when this house was constructed, and it was owned by somebody named Gordon Cousins, who himself was an architect. He requested special permission from us at 6 to move the house over towards our house by several feet in order to maximize the view from inside his house. We agreed to that on the condition that there would be no garage and no carport on that side of the house. He is an architect. He went and hired another architect. Both of them agreed that it would be very feasible to put a garage on the other side of the house if they wanted one. So with that, Gordon agreed to stick with a driveway on our side, knowing that if he later wanted a garage, it would be on the other side. The town is aware of it. They turned down his having a carport or a garage. After the house was built, he asked again, and it got turned down a second time. And I happen to know that the owners who live there today knew when they bought the house that they had been turned down for a garage. They told me that years ago. So I am not buying that. So frankly, I don't think any of these neighbors would care if they want to have a garage. I understand the goal, but it belongs on the other side of the house, where the house was designed for it to be on the other side, and it was sited on the lot to be on the other side. But if none of that matters to anybody and you think this is a clean slate, there are some very compelling problems with this design. One of them is this family has 5 cars, and there are always cars on the platform. And as a result, every time their other cars or their delivery people, their repairmen, their friends, whoever comes up that road has somehow adopted my private driveway as their turnaround, because there is nowhere else for people to turn around. If you put a garage on that site, for sure there's nowhere for anyone to turn around, whether there are cars in the garage or not. It is completely blocked. And I am not going to make my private driveway available as a turnaround for the world. We have already twice had damage on the driveway and had to repair it from people just randomly turning around. So that is going to be off the table. There's also a significant safety issue. If this garage comes to within 2 feet of the street, when they back their cars out, they are not backing out onto a driveway like most people do. They are backing out blindly onto the street. They cannot see cars coming from either direction, and cars coming from either direction cannot see them backing out. And I don't care to have to worry about that every time I come and go from my home or every time anyone comes up our road, which is many times a day.
Okay, we're at 3 minutes. If you could wrap up.
Okay, I am going to have to take another minute. And I hope you.
Unfortunately, we can't let you. Yeah.
Okay, somebody else is
you've
going
run
to
out.
have to deal with this. I'm,
Thank you. Thank you. All right. If anybody else would like to come up and speak on the project.
Hello, everyone. My name is Larry Adland. I live at 5 Owlswood Road. 35 years ago, my husband and I moved from Minneapolis and were thrilled to come to California. We looked at over 80 properties from Burlingame to Berkeley to Belvedere to Owlswood Road. When we drove up Owlswood Road, and there in front of us was the city sparkling away, it was no brainer. The house was wonderful. We loved the view. It was private. It was perfect. And we have been happy there all of these years. Um, 10 years ago, we put on a lookout in the front of our house so that we have now an unobstructed panoramic view from the city on one side all the way through Belvedere, the lagoon. We have Sausalito, Mill Valley, Mount Tam. It's spectacular. I love it. And it's a very special place. I see an ever-changing vista 5 or 6 times a day. Every time I go up and down that road, I'm up and down the road a lot. It's an ever-changing vista. At the T, I see the skyline of San Francisco. I see the bay. I see the ferries. I see the freighters. I see the cruise ships. I see the sailboat races on Friday and the yachts, and it's magnificent. It's just magnificent. The colors, the activities, the Wonder Wheel now, the lights at night. It's gorgeous. We also enjoy our view from outdoor all the time. We put in heaters in the ceiling. We have an outdoor fireplace, and we get to enjoy this view, this vista every month of the year, and we do. Lynn and I oppose the building of the structure of our neighbors up the street, as we will permanently lose the views that we hold so dear from the road and from our home. And we also think it will have a detrimental effect on every home on our road, because once this garage is built, when you come up to the top of the road, all you see is the garage. That's all you see is their garage and their garbage cans and their bikes and their other 4 cars. And as neighbors, we have all dealt with the extra cars and the extra stuff, but I think it's unfair. I think all of us that live on the road have enjoyed the view from the road and realize that it's $1 million view. It is. I called a realtor, a local realtor who has worked here for 30 years, Nan Allen, and I said, Nan, what's the effect of this structure? What's the effect on our property? She said, probably $500,000 on each of your properties.
We're at 3 minutes if you could wrap
That's
up.
all.
Right.
And I would say that I'm opposed to this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank
you couldn't
Thank you. Yeah. Yep.
There were copies back here on the table, and there were copies submitted of all the pictures, yes. Excuse me?
All right. If we could, the next person, if the next person that would like to speak, please come up.
I'm Bill Berry. I live at 9 Alswood Road, which is above Courtney and Vasilie's home. On the viewpoint, I know at least 3 of the board members did site visits, and it seems to me you guys can make decisions about the views without regard to the pictures. So I just suggest you do that again to the extent that there are issues about views from the house or views from the bushes or whatever. The second point I want to make is I have, life is long, life is difficult, and I have no desire to be fighting with our neighbors. I think the worst possible thing is when neighbors don't get along, because there's really nowhere to hide. The issue, the history is, we've been there 45 years. 19 years ago, Gordon Cousins built a house on what was the last vacant lot, and that's always difficult. We had, the neighbors got involved with Gordon to come up with a design that didn't block anyone's views. And that design included no garage for all the reasons that we're arguing about now. I don't know if it's legally binding because I haven't seen the plans from 19 years ago. And there's nothing in writing that I'm aware of. I just know that we talked about it. And I leave that up to you guys as to what binding effect that has. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this project?
Hello, my name is Tavia Barnes. I'm number 10 on that map, on that road, Owlswood Road. And I would like to first start with the understanding, and I agree with Bill, that this is the hardest thing for everyone on this road right now. No one is getting sleep on either side because it's difficult to have a disagreement or a misunderstanding with a neighbor. That being said, I have 2 points. The setback variance is one I'm concerned about, just the safety of being able with only 2 feet of variance for cars to come in and to back in and out of that garage, mostly backing coming out of the garage. I have a lot of traffic coming from number 10. My family, my friends, my gardeners, the cleaning ladies, and Amazon trucks galore, as we all do. And I just don't see how that can be maneuvered with 2 feet. Perhaps it can. That's really for your consideration, but I just don't understand it. And the difference between number 4 and number 6, yes, they got a variance, but there is room for a whole car to be still on their property, not on the road, before they have to enter the road. That I don't believe it is physically possible to back out of a closed garage where no one can see you. You know, we can see now if someone's in the car and coming out, but back out of a garage where no one can see you, that I think that that would be a safety issue for all on the road, even though people do drive slowly. But the real point I wanted to make is that there was an agreement with Owlswood Road when Gordon Cousin built that house. And we were all in discussions with him, and we all remember those discussions. And frankly, I'm surprised that there's no record that he had applied for a garage and that it was denied in that space, because that's what we were all told, all of us, and that we proceeded and agreed to not a carport, not a garage, but a car deck. I can just imagine the people who were on first talked to all their neighbors, got them to all agree on the height of the house, the height of the trees, and then the neighbors say, great, we understand it, we're fine. And 1 year later,
We're at 3 minutes, if you could wrap up.
5 years later, they sell the house and they build another story. That's why people are upset, because we were made promises. So
Thank you.
I oppose it.
Thank you for taking the time to listen. My name is Ofra Alon. I live in Owlswood 7, which you've seen in the pictures. Now, my plan was to talk about something else, but after the presentation that I've seen, I have to say that it was quite misleading. There's a lot of information that is missing and was presented incorrectly, especially regarding the images that were shown and saying around the bush. There is nothing hiding. You can come to my house and you can see the obstruction. Now, part of when I bought the house, when we moved into Tiburon, the view was the main item, why we even got this house. We've been looking for houses for many years, probably about 3 or 4 years prior to that. And we've seen beautiful houses, structurally fantastic houses, but nothing captured our imagination the way that the Owlswood 7 did. Once we got in there, I had no interest checking whether the foundation is the structural integrity of the house, nothing. The view was the main item. And now this thing is basically sitting in the middle. If I go right now to in my house, or if I go to to the deck. Now, the deck, this is the jewel part of my house. This is basically when neighbors, when friends coming in, this is where I take them to see the view. And this thing is going to sit just right there in the middle of that, which will be a flat surface, ruining the overall image of what I'm getting right now. When I bought this house, I bought it with this view. Now, if you allow something like this to take place, you're taking away from what I paid for. I lived in this house because of that view, and I want to be able to retain this thing. Now, there are a few things that were said in here which actually I do not understand. First, there was a very careful wording about the garage that was not allowed to be built in the past. The wording that were used, it was that there's no indication of garage being removed. No one's saying that the garage was removed. The garage was not allowed to be placed in there because of the impact of the view to the neighbors. The other thing that was saying, they were presenting it such a way that it would say, there's really no impact on the neighbors, but then if there's no impact, why are we here? Why am I here if there's no impact? Why are all those people are here if there's no impact on what the way we live in Tiburon? So basically what I'm saying would be is the presentation was misleading, taking a lot of information and presenting it in a way that would make sense why you would allow something like that, but this is not the right information that you should go with. The information would be is what you're listening to the other neighbors and then figuring out, is this basically by allowing them to build something, if you're negatively impacting all those neighbors, then this is definitely something that should be taken into consideration.
You're at 3 minutes. You could wrap up, please.
Right. So just, yeah, as far as the photos, the photos that were presented were misleading.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening. Hi, I'm Betsy Little. I'm 1 Owlswood. My house was not mentioned there, but I've been a resident of Owlswood Road since 1989. I believe Carolyn and Fred Zellinger, when they spoke with Gordon Cousins, who was an honorable man and an architect. The new neighbors are honorable people as well. And we're right, it's terrible when neighbors don't get along. But what Gordon did originally is he went to all the neighbors. And they came up with a plan that was amenable to all of them, to have just the car deck put there. If it's true that this house could have the garage put on the other side, it would be wonderful. And now you see that picture there? The minute you come around the corner of that part of Owlswood, you've lost the view of the city. It is an area that all of us on the road, which is a private road, which is both good and bad, particularly in terms of road maintenance, that we enjoy, like 4th of July, there are parties coming up. That's not our primary living space, obviously, but a view in Tiburon includes both upside, downside scenes, but is generally medium or long range in nature as opposed to short range. Views include, but are not limited to, skylines, bridges, landmarks, distant cities, distinctive geologic features, hillside terrains, wooded canyon ridges, and bodies of water. Some of those examples, the first one is what we've all enjoyed, which is San Francisco Bay, and also the bridge, the Tiburon Peninsula, surrounding communities, including the city of San Francisco. By that garage being built, we're going to lose a beautiful part of the city. I used to be a realtor a million years ago, and I know people look for curb appeal. If you're driving up looking at a new house at that part of Owlswood, you're never going to see the city. You're never going to really enjoy, whether you have 2 cents or $2 billion, that view of the city. You're just going to see a box. So I implore you all to think about that, to think about what it'd be like if that was your neighborhood and they're taking away a site that's really treasured by all of us. And to me, if there was an agreement between Gordon Cousins and the neighbors, we should stick by that agreement. It might not have been in writing, but it obviously had the consensus of all the neighbors there. So thanks very much for taking your time.
Thank you. Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this application? All right, seeing none, we'll go to the Zoom call. If you are on the Zoom call and you wish to speak, if you could use the raise hand feature at the bottom of the Zoom screen, and we'll let you into the call.
Chair Chung, I do not have anybody on Zoom.
All right, thank you. And with that, we will provide the applicant the ability to come back up for 5 minutes to address any of the concerns that were raised.
I'm going to sit over here so I can face everyone. First of all, thank you so much for coming. I mean, clearly, we love our views in Tiburon.
Actually, if you could address the board.
Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
We do that to prevent fights.
Okay. No fights allowed. Thank you. We love our views in Tiburon. I live in Tiburon. I've grown up in Tiburon. I've lived in the house that I was born in. When I was a kid, both of the lots adjacent me were empty. I grew up playing on them. I grew up thinking they were my backyard. And I know how hard this is. This is so hard. We're all adverse to change. People get accustomed to what they see in their coffee when they're drinking their coffee in the morning. Clearly, people get accustomed to what they see from their car when they're driving up the roadway. But I think it's really important to remember that what you see from your car is not a protected view. The codes are very specific about what is a protected view. And as much as I would love to pretend the lot next to me is mine, I respect the way the planning department works. We have rules and regulations that govern what is allowed and what is not, and we hope that people execute those with honor and respect to the way they were written. That is what we're trying to do here. It's not trying to be aggressive. It's really just trying to address a lack that exists for this particular residence. Now, as far as the agreement that went before, I apologize. I'm new to this. I did not grow up in this neighborhood. I don't know cousins. I've never been here before I was involved in this project. That said, neither were my clients. I have to believe Samantha. I asked her on multiple occasions if there was any wording about a previous agreement or anything about the garage. And we can look this up, but there is nothing in the records about this. There's nothing. At least that's what I was told. So there may have been an understanding when they built this, but my clients purchased this property without being party to that understanding or that agreement. And so this is a really tricky issue, because how can you honor an agreement that is not legally binding and that you did not enter into as a participant? I think that's a really important thing to say. I do want to clarify a couple of things that brought up. It is not a 2 foot off the road. 2 feet is the setback from the variance, and that's a little bit just different than that 2 feet. It is no different than what there is now. So the backout condition that exists now is the same as the backout condition that will exist after this garage goes in. Now, the question about visibility, valid point. We can put in windows on the side of the garage. We can put in a glass garage door. All of those things can help mitigate this loss of visibility from the garage. But I just want to say that this is not increasing the hazard that exists or people feel exists in this neighborhood. The other comments that were brought up were things that again, I wrote it down. Almost every person mentioned a view from the turnaround, from the road, from the drive home. Again, the roadway is not a protected view. You do not have, the codes are not written in a way that you are guaranteed to maintain the view from the road. It says that you are supposed to protect the view from the protected areas, which are the primary living areas of your house. And by the way, just to say, I never said that you could not see this garage. Of course you can see this garage. What I'm arguing is it's not significantly impacting the view of the bay. And I think that's a very important distinction to make. Yes, you will see it. It's not invisible. You will see it. But it is not impacting the significant view from your living room, from your kitchen table. It's not impacting those views. So I just think that's an important thing to say. And as far as an agreement, I understand this community came together to try and protect something that they have long had for 30 years. But then it needs to be legally binding, because otherwise we have a problem where how can anybody buy a property and improve their property if they're not aware of some phantom agreement that's not legally documented anywhere? So I would just say, please, let's consider, I mean, with the greatest empathy, let's address the problems of visibility, but let's also respect the right of a property owner to improve their property within the planning guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the applicant?
I have a question to staff. Can you confirm that there is no document, whether in an MOU, in a LOI, whether it was a ruling, whether it was some kind of written document in the files at Tiburon that memorialized this agreement that there would never be a garage there?
So we did significant research and we did not find any such document. In fact, we didn't even find any document that referred to a denial of a garage or a proposal for a garage. That doesn't mean the discussions didn't happen. As we all know, there could be discussions with respect to a design, and they don't come before us, and we don't see it because the neighbors objected and the individual decided to remove it from the design. But we don't see that. We do see things like that the lot was developed in 2005, and at the time it was an undeveloped piece of property. And in 2006, they applied for an addition at a lower level. And then there were 2 additional design review applications for a safety railing in the yard that were in 2020, and a fence that was approved in 2020. Neither of, there aren't any kind of referral to a proposed garage or an agreement of any sort. So we did do extensive research that we didn't find anything.
And can you confirm that as the design review board, in the absence of such documentation, we are not an adjudicating body that would actually honor that?
I'm going to ask our attorney to respond to that.
Thank you.
Any other questions before we close public hearing? All right, so with that, we'll bring it back to the board. Evie, why don't you lead us off? No, we closed the public hearing. Yeah.
So I did go up there.
Is your mic
Yeah,
on?
speak into the
Just
mic.
can't really hear
And
you.
Phoebe, just a rule is that we talk amongst ourselves. It's a
Gotcha.
discussion
I know
amongst the
that.
board.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you. Sorry about that, guys. Okay, I did go up there and I visited the neighbor, I believe at 7 Owlswood, and went into, he was kind enough to let me in, and I went over to the deck he's concerned about and the living room. I noticed the beautiful view as I drove up the road. It's lovely. He has a panoramic, gorgeous view from his living room and the deck. I think views from the road, vehicular views are not protected. You know, they're neighborhood views. They're lovely. I completely empathize with change. You can see the story poles as you drive up right in front of you. I get that. But I think that to prioritize a vehicular neighborhood view over somebody's right to have a garage. I was also there on a rainy day, so it was raining, and I met the owner briefly, and she was carrying in her bags in the rain, and so I support creating some shelter in the existing pad. I think that makes sense. It is close to the road. I happen to live in a neighborhood where my garage and my area, and maybe not mine specifically, but the neighbors are right on the road. So I get that. You might have to do a 3-point turn, but I think that is, I think it's workable. Like I said, I can support the variance for being close to the road because it's already there. I mean, that to me is practical and it makes sense. The neighbor's garage, it is twisted, but it is close to the road as well. the view issues for the neighbors, I also walked up into the driveway of, I think it was 5 Owlswood, and I couldn't really see the subject property, and that house is oriented the other direction. So while I certainly empathize with the neighborhood character and having that view have something land, I think that garages exist on all the houses, and I think there's plenty of other opportunity there if they want to kind of cut down some hedges and create view corridors where there aren't any right now. One thought I have, and I don't know if this is appropriate or not, but I do think, do we encourage then the applicant to create either a carport with a lockable full-size shed where the bikes go, so that we really mitigate the obstruction of visibility for the cars backing out? That is, I think that's kind of a valid concern that would create more open, or is that not something that we need to, is that getting into the weeds, carport versus garage? I don't know. I'm new. So I
I
don't
think
know.
that's definitely game. I think it's the architecture. So yes, I think that's part of our purview.
Okay. I think that's all I have to say right now. I'm interested in hearing what you guys say.
I think I echo a lot of what Phoebe said. I did spend some time at the neighbors at 5 and at 9, and walked around 7, but they weren't home. So but I had to go in 9 and then spoke with the applicant. I think I again can empathize with the lost view from the road that you're used to, but views are challenging, and we do have an ordinance and we do have a definition of protected views, and I think we do have to try and really kind of zone in on that and what this impacts from a view standpoint. I think that from my perspective, when I think about these gray area view impacts of it's like, hey, it's a negative impact. Are there alternatives that we can mitigate the negative impact that are kind of low hanging fruit, or something that shifts the balance from there's always a balance of from a impact of privacy and views on the neighbors and the community to a hardship on the applicant, and where are we on that balance? I think it'd be add a lot of value to this applicant if they kept the carport and were able to build a new garage and have another 2 parking spots. But I don't think that's really feasible in this instance. That's a really steep slope. I think you're driving. You create this garage. It's basically got to hit the property line, go down slope. I don't think it's an easy, like, oh, this is win-win for everyone. I think that's a really big hardship, and something that probably doesn't make a ton of sense, given the view impact is really from, I measured it out, it's 20 feet of road. You go, you're going up and then down quickly. You don't see, and you should be focusing on driving, and that it's a tight spot. I echo what Phoebe said. I would encourage the applicants to, there's a lot of hedges that have grown on that railing on the left. I think it'd be a good neighborly gesture to, maybe lower those down to railing height or 5 feet, and then we're impacting the view from one vantage point, but we're creating a view from another. And it's just, there's an evolution when there's landscaping and things like that of the neighborhood, and views do change from the scenery. But I think they're entitled. I don't think this is a superfluous request. It's a garage. Parking cars inside is better than outside. It's just objectively true. And I think that that's kind of where I stand. I think there's the hardship is too much on the applicants. I think if we don't reject this, we don't consider this this proposal.
I think I have a slightly different view on some of these points that there is a difference between a garage and a carport. And there is, obviously, you can use the word safety or view, et cetera, but that's a factor. There is obviously some importance to this in its overall community view, and yet that's not protected. But I would feel better supporting this if there was more neighborhood support, and maybe there is some give and take that could be taken. And I really could not, looking at that, I really could not see an alternative site though for the garage. It would be very nice to come in and say, just as you're suggesting, leave that as a carport, build the garage over to the far right, and and find a way to access that. But that's quite difficult. But I guess the bottom line is I would still have trouble supporting this tonight without more community support as well. I'm not sure that there's been enough effort to find out a way to, as you said, give and take, or find a solution that that lets the neighborhood be more satisfied.
I think our purview is not, it's to take community perspectives into consideration, but in the context of what's before us is we have a structure, we have a code, we have a zoning code that specifically says that it does not talk about impact. There's a distinction between impact and impact, a specific type of impact. If we always looked at development as, does it impact me? Yes, it does. So I'm going to object it. We would get nothing done in Tiburon. Nothing. That's why the zoning code was established very specifically. And it said, if it impacts your view in a specific way and has significant factor, then we need to think about any other design alternatives. And being on this board for how many years, I have seen buildings that have actually obstructed views significantly. And I would have to say, of all of the view obstruction sort of objections I've seen, this is probably the least impactful view obstruction I've ever seen. One of the very few. There's nothing in the code that says we shall protect community views or our public views. Except, there are, provisions that sort of hint at that, where we talk about like fencing, like we have a 6-foot fence and we have those, but there's nothing that says that should be protected over a private property and the protection of private value. So I feel strongly with the architect's arguments that was presented. Her points were very valid. I don't see the negative significant impact on the view from other private homes in their major spaces. I just don't see the major impact there. So while I understand there's community sentiment against this, I strongly believe that that's why we have these guidelines to help us figure this out. And for that, and because of that, I can actually make the findings for the variance in this case as well.
Yeah, so this one was a relatively easy one for me, not because there wasn't a lot to consider, but one of the reasons I joined the design review board many years ago was because I had a parking deck on top of living space right next to a street and had it, basically an application to enclose it as a garage. And so, fortunately, my neighbors were in support of it. But, you know, I did it because, you know, clearly having a garage, not having a garage is a hardship, I think, right? I mean, just from everything from storage of your cars, but also all the other things that you have in life. And there definitely have been times that, over the years on the board, there was a complex on Red Hill Circle that came through that had a carport that had been wanted to enclose it as a garage a number of times. Previous design review boards had rejected it, and ultimately ended up passing. So, yeah, for me, I definitely, you know, sympathize that you are going to lose a view, but you know, a street view is not a protected view. I you know, some of the things like backing out of the driveway, I think definitely does, you know, provide, you know, some concern there. So if there is maybe a modification of some windows or or something that maybe helps solve that a little bit, but as far as actually locating, you know, a structure in that location, I agree with, you know, at least it sounds like the majority of the fellow board members that that I'd be more in support of it than not.
I think I would support a condition about a side window to actually see cars coming by to help with that.
I think it's a two-way street. It would both help the person pulling out to be able to see the cars, but likewise, I think if you were coming up, you would also be able to see someone. So I guess what would that look like for folks? It sounds like at least there's maybe 4 that would head toward support of the project. What would anybody have any opinions on location, size, et cetera, if that was a condition we wanted to add?
Do we? I'm trying to decide if it's, you know, it's their house, it's their safety. They're backing out. They've heard the concern raised about, hey, it's a little tricky backing out. You know, adding big windows in there, then you look into it. Like I'm trying to think to myself, like, would it actually help me, like, back out of the car, like you're having the window?
It does help.
Versus the cameras of new cars. I don't know. I wouldn't. I don't have a party. I don't have a strong, like, I'm not married to it. I don't want it to be just a quick, like, oh yeah, let's put a window in it, and I want it to. I'd feel more comfortable if this 3 or 4 of you were like, yeah, like it'll be a big help to.
So on the fence with windows,
Yes, you live right in the area.
what would you?
Well, so, I think that windows, I think they would help on a couple fronts, but certainly for the safety issue, I would say windows. I mean, and again, I'm not, you know, here to suggest, you know, how to design the garage with windows, but I would say a significant amount of, you know, windows on both sides so that you can actually see either way would be helpful. And I think that would have a net effect also of kind of reducing that mass, which would be kind of a nice gesture. But I agree, Suzanne, with you that I think, you know, being able to have a garage, and Brian, you as well, you know, I mean, that's important.
I'm just wondering, like, in terms of history, you know, there's a bunch of tight homes in Old Tiburon, and they're right there against the road. And so have the windows helped? I mean, I'm thinking I live near Paradise, and I've seen the windows because I can see the backup light, and I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I can see it through the window. It's you know, it doesn't have to be big, but it's bright enough that you can actually see the lights and stuff.
Yeah, I guess in the dark.
Even in the light, it's helpful. And how would we do it so that planning would, we would have to instrumentalize it so that planning could actually take that and assess whether or not it works.
So yeah, I guess would we be leaning toward like a continuance to see a full kind of like the application come back with windows, or would we be looking to specify kind of the amount of glazing and locations that it would need to be? And it would have to be pretty specific in order, I think, for staff to feel comfortable with having it as a condition of approval.
I'm just like thinking it needs to be low enough that you capture the taillights. I don't know if it needs to be on both sides, but definitely on the north side, kind of, if because that's the closest to that corner. So
Maybe I think I would be supportive of supporting it now and not continuing it with windows coming back. I think that we decide, it's either a big vertical at the closest to the corner on either side or horizontal. I mean, I guess we'll figure that one out. But I think that makes sense to me to move forward with supporting it.
I agree with you.
So with that, I think just, we would just want to provide, I think, staff with the, with, I don't want to say specifics, because I think we want to give the architect some room to be able to design.
Minimum size.
But yeah,
and
I think we
minimum
maybe
percentage.
minimum size or location or something that it accomplishes as far as being able to see like something from some area. So, yeah.
Well, I think the best way to kind of capture the tail light would be a vertical window, actually, instead of, what I had said before. Because that way you can, see somebody standing, the tail light, everything else.
So the bottom
I don't
sill would
think
be
you can have a window that goes below 36 inches, can you, on a outside wall like that?
yeah, you can.
I wouldn't,
Yeah, you can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
on a corner view like that, you
Yeah.
can have glass go to the floor?
Yeah.
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 Absolutely.
All right, well,
I mean, not at the corner, well, you could even do that.
You can't
but
do
I
it at the
mean,
corner, 'cause you have
No,
to have
I'm
the
saying in
structure.
from the corner. I mean,
Yeah.
you've got the moment frame
Yeah.
and then,
well, I thought
Just-
you wanted to see the tail lights.
Yes, it just
I was
has to
trying to
be.
vision how you see tail lights if you don't do.
well, because presumably there's going to be a foot or two behind the tail light and the garage door. And it has a beam, the light has a beam, so, I mean, that would be my thought.
I mean, something that's 3 to 5 square feet with the bottom sill at minimum, I don't know, 18 to 24 inches from the floor or something like that at both sides, close to the edge, but allowing, not the edge, sorry, the corner, but it can't be at the corner, right? It can't, so.
Yeah, just close to the
Yeah.
corner. And Jim, if your concern is also glass at the face of the garage, I mean, that's another option, is to introduce glass in the door.
Yeah, I guess I was just picturing if the door opens, it's a non-issue of the car coming out. But then from the side, I just thought for safety of, of burglary, et cetera, and really, at what point do you really benefit from, I guess, seeing the car? It is important to see that, but I just don't know how a window helps you unless you, I think, have brought up the corner, and I don't see why you'd put a window in a garage that close to the corner.
There are a number of instances, especially on a turn, where you do have that, and it actually lights up that area at night, and during the day you can actually see it you can see either the daylight, because it's going to be at an angle like this, you're going to see the daylight coming through that window as well. So there's a number of ways that it could help sort of signify that there's either a car about to come out or.
And that's, I guess I'm kind of imagining if I were to put it on reverse, put my car in reverse, open the garage door and look back, if I have a window back closer to the road, I'm able to broaden my spectrum of view, whatever that width of the window is. And I think that's my reasoning.
Yeah, and I think there was some mention of both sides. I mean, I think the right side is more the concern for me, just because the other one seems like you could back out like for a few feet
I agree.
before you're
Yeah.
actually in the road.
I agree.
Yeah.
if you're staring at it, the right window.
Yeah,
It
as you're
basically
facing
made,
it.
like,
Yeah.
it
As you're
basically
facing the
made
garage
this,
door.
like,
Yeah.
this tail
Yeah.
light that you would be able to see
That
through the
one's
window.
one that's
Yeah, because
more problematic. Yeah. Mhm. I agree. Let's just, I mean, I think the minimum is that one there and maybe something at 24 inches or something. Yeah.
So.
What are you guys on?
So you're.
I'm not opposed. I'm not.
Window agnostic.
I'm window agnostic, I think.
And then it sounded like the opinion was that something that would be, what, no, that would go down to at least what, 24?
I think so. I think that's reasonable.
24, and then size? You said 3 to 5 square feet, but I think you meant like a 3 to 5 window, 3 by 5 window.
No, I don't want to specify the window. I think it's just a minimum square feet, not a 3 by 5. Oh, not a 3.
Chair
Yeah.
Chong, are you sitting, is your mic on? Because we don't hear you very well at all.
That's what I was saying earlier. It doesn't sound like my mic is turned up.
Yeah, try to use Alex's so that we make sure we get this motion on the record, please.
Is that better? Oh, there we go. All right. All right. So yeah, I think we were just trying to specify the window that would have, a windowsill, down to at least 24 inches, above the floor. And, it sounds like no one wants to specify a size, but I think that causes some difficulty for staff if we don't.
I
give a
think
little
I
bit
had
of
heard
guidance.
3 to 5 square feet.
I don't know about that square feet.
I
'cause
saw
that's
this.
like- Yeah. I don't-
Which is
That's
kind of
that's not helpful. That's not helpful.
That's about 24 to 30 inches wide is what I'm indicating. So 2 feet by.
24 to 36 inches.
So are you saying
Okay.
2
We'll give
feet?
a range.
That's about 10 to 15 square feet.
Okay, so
Is
because,
that
yeah, okay.
you go up to a standard 7.0 header, which makes sense.
So 10 to 15 square feet. All right.
It's a vertical window.
Yeah.
On the right side,
Yep,
24 inches.
I mean,
from the floor.
From the floor.
From
and
the
then
floor.
10 to 15 square
And
feet.
then
Okay.
10 to 15 square feet.
Okay.
As the minimum. So it could be not vertical, but capture all of that and be a big square. So yeah.
Okay, that makes sense to me.
All right. So it sounds like we're in a place maybe to hear a motion from somebody with some of that in there.
I'd like to make a motion to approve,
Adopt the draft.
adopt the draft resolution with an additional condition that there is a window on the right side as you're facing the building from the street. So at the right side, where the minimum height of the lower sill is at 24 inches, that the minimum square footage of that is 10 square feet. And that it's categorically exempt from CEQA and that we can make the 4 findings for the variance.
And do we have a
There are
second?
there are 2 variance requests for
variances,
both
2
variances.
The 2 variance requests as well. Yeah.
And do we have a second?
I second.
All those in favor?
Should we take a voice for it?
Aye.
Aye.
And opposed? No, sorry, we closed the public hearing. Opposed?
Aye.
All right. So with that, the motion carries, and we move on to the next item on this evening's agenda, which is PH 4/1945 Straits View Drive. If the applicant could come up, does anybody need a break? And since we are still conducting a meeting, if you could please quietly leave.
Are we on number PH 4 or 5?
4. Everybody shake that out. Good. All right. All right. Moving right along, PH 4, 1945 Straits View Drive.
Good evening,
Hey,
board members.
Hold on a second. Hey, Dina. We're gonna start. Yeah, thanks. Sorry about that. All right.
Okay, good evening, board members. My name is Alex Seidel, and I'm the property owner as well as the architect for this project. My mother, Barbara Seidels, lived at the site for about 25 years and enjoys it. This is as you can see, a 1950s house that is somewhat intact. This is a view you would see coming from the west side, Straits View. And let me get my clicker going here. This is as you go around the bend down toward the cul-de-sac. This is the east side of the property. You can see there's a lot of grade going on here. The whole side of this hillside is terraced with a series of houses. So this is an overall view of the neighborhood. And we've listed a series of addresses there. Last fall, I reached out to each of those property owners in the surrounding neighborhood, provided them with a package to see if anybody had feedback. I did get some feedback from 1970 Straits View, which is actually the property right, oops, bear with me. This one downhill at the end of the cul-de-sac, the Lax family. And we made some changes based on that. I'll get into that in a minute. This is the site plan. It's about a half-acre site. The purpose of the proposal is really threefold. This is another older house that doesn't have a garage. We'd like to add a two-car garage. There's some interior changes to update the house largely within the existing envelope of the house. And the third part of it is to add a 1,000 square foot ADU. The characteristic of the property, I know some of you were there, oops, my fingers are too big. Driveway comes in on the uphill side and comes to a sort of a narrow and long parking area here. The garage would be located off that parking area, and the ADU is proposed to be located beneath it. I wanted to just give you a little background on how we came to this scheme. Obviously, the ADU could be located in various locations on the property. There's enough land. We generally thought any development should take place at the back where it would be out of view of most of the neighbors. We looked at actually trying to place something down low, but the grades are kind of a problem there, and it could come within 4 feet of that property line, but it would essentially be exactly up against the cul-de-sac and closer to the property across the street. So that didn't seem like a good option. It also could have been in the back portion of the property, which would have had amazing views. But when we really considered the idea of a separate ADU, it just seemed like it was increasing the coverage on the property, even though the coverage doesn't count, and having a great deal more impact in terms of the massing because of the grades. So that's how we came to the idea of basically putting a garage on top and an ADU underneath. So here's a section that, kind of, my apologies. The driveway comes in here, and there would be a level platform here where you can park car there. It's about 22 feet between the face of the garage and the existing rock outcropping that goes up toward the adjacent property. This is the ADU tucked underneath the garage. This is the adjacent house at 1925 Straits View. So you can see the terraced effect on the hill here. And this is a sight line from the adjacent house. And we wanted to be careful to make sure that we were below their sight line of the bay. This is existing vegetation on their property. This is the property line here. So basically unobstructed views from the uphill properties. So this is the plan of the house, the garage, the existing house here. Just to spend a moment on the changes to the house. I'm sorry, I really shaded area here is about 100 square feet added to get more space for the dining room. It's under the existing roof, which is out here. And then some changes. There's really no primary master bedroom suite in this house in the contemporary sense, but there is existing space in the house that can be converted in this upstairs loft area into a primary suite. We had a previous version that we brought in and I looked at with Savannah. Right now we have planned an office in this area next to the garage. That would be new construction. But my original thought was that that could be a junior ADU. It appears that we actually need to build the space before we can convert it to a junior ADU. So it's designed so in the future it could be converted to a junior ADU, but initially it'll be an office. This is the entry and a stairway down to the ADU, and then the two-car garage. And then this is the lower level plan of the ADU, basically bermed into the hillside with windows looking to the east where the grade is going down. Elevations of the house, you can see it's extremely low profile from the west side, the garage and office appearing on the left. And then this would be the east elevation that you would see from sort of the Straits View cul-de-sac side. Materials are plaster and glass, trying to work with the character of the existing mid-century modern house. This is the south elevation facing the city view, San Francisco, Angel Island. And a couple of photo renderings. Get a sense of the topography here. Of course, we did want to make sure that we were not blocking any of our uphill neighbors' primary views. This was a photo rendering that we provided to them. That is the roof of the proposed addition. This is the existing house, and it extends further in that direction. This is 1925. This is taken from 1911 Straits View Drive. And landscape plan, I mentioned earlier that one of our neighbors, the Lax family, had asked for some additional improvements. And so on the cul-de-sac side, on the slope, we added a crawling ground cover, ceanothus, and as well as some additional screen planting here. There's some utilities that appear on this face of the house, and they wanted to have them screened. So we added that to the landscape plan. I think that's pretty much it.
Any questions for the applicant?
Good, you can go ahead first.
Could you show me that, your rendering again, your completed rendering? I had a quick question. I think I understood.
This one?
Yes. And this you're going to, the first floor is mostly glass, is that right? It just seemed to take so much of the mass effect away. I was very pleased to see that. Yeah.
Oops,
Make
I'm
sure
sorry,
that was
my
correct.
digits really are
Yeah.
fat. Yeah, so that's pretty, there's a little 5-foot piece of wall there, and then it's just glass. And I think there'll be some pretty nice views from there. Not quite as good as if it were a level up, because there's some trees across the street, but I think you'll get some water views, and it should be a pleasant outlook.
And the garage is the white area to the right, correct? Yeah.
That's right. It's interesting, we're talking about windows and garages, but the garage does have that's into the garage, and then around the corner, there's some windows looking to what's the new open space that used to be the Martha property.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a few questions. I just want to confirm what's the depth of the driveway? Sorry, the depth of the garage is like 24 feet or?
Yeah, it's about 24 feet.
Okay, and then just confirming on exterior elevation, I'm looking at on the east elevation, the kind of the fill in the foundation, that at max, it's going to be 10 feet. That bottom right corner, is that 10 feet? I think on another thing it says it's, yeah, how high is that before you get to the finished floor height of the ADU?
It's between 9 and 10 feet
Okay.
at the corner there.
Okay, and then did you do any I know it's a tight, driveway, and is there any studies you did, or did you investigate anything with like backing out and turnarounds, and there's that big rock kind of that abuts 1925 Straits View, like can that be pushed back at all, or basically excavated out to add more width to the driveway? Did you look into that at all?
Yeah, well, the driveway was a big consideration in the design. And so generally, in projects that we design, 24 feet is considered a normal backup dimension. And right now we're down to 22 feet here. So by adding the garage, it's going to improve the maneuverability, because you'll be able to pull in and make a 3-point turn going out. But I'm hoping the driveway will also serve for people who aren't parking in the garage. And so basically, with 22 feet, I believe maybe 50% of vehicles are going to have to make a 5-point turn to get out of there. If they're not parking in the garage, because we want to have at least 3 spaces with putting an ADU in. So it's what I consider to be the minimum that it could function on the property. I don't think it's about 10 to 12 years ago. We worked with the adjacent homeowners when the new house was built in 1925. And about $400,000 was spent on new retaining walls between the two properties, and the retaining walls actually span both properties. It was a little bit like one of these other items where we were, that you heard tonight about a fence that. So we kind of worked with the topography of the hill, and I just think that I wouldn't want to go in there and get involved with trying to re-engineer that, because that house is so far up and there's like an engineering angle of incidence that comes down to our property that I think it would be infeasible, frankly, to try to dig into that hill any further.
Okay. I think that's all I got. Thanks very much.
I've got a couple questions as well. So you're confirming that it's a 24-foot deep garage? Is that right? Because there's no dimensions on that depth for the ADU or the garage.
It's, I believe it's 24 feet. And I can check it, but I don't have the, to the inch. But the footprint of the garage is very much related really to the footprint of the ADU below.
Right, right.
So it's sort of a, it's a
Yeah.
box.
Yeah, yeah, okay. I also am a little confused on section A 4.2. I went back and forth between that and the floor plans, and section 1 has a cut and the color coding doesn't seem to match, to my review, the floor plan. So I'm hoping you can explain what's going on. Not that one, the next one. The next section, 4.2.
Oh, I don't think I have it in the presentation. So I do have it here in front of me though. I think.
So what it shows is it's just the color coding of the garage is including the bathroom and then the office. And the ADU is below, but here it's showing kind of it's kind of showing the ADU as the upstairs as well.
Can I come and look at the sheet that you're looking at?
Not that one?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Section 1.
I've got to get a little closer.
Yeah. Yeah, so the section, there's two sections, yeah, and one shows as if the ADU is kind of all, it doesn't show the office and the bathroom as far as color coding, and then the other section down below shows existing, which clearly it's existing because there's no addition there, but on the floor plans, it's showing through the proposed area. So if you could just clarify what's going on with those, that would be great.
I think there is actually something inaccurate in that section, the way the stair is showing. I think this is like a
Yeah, it's kind
little
of floating.
CAD glitch.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, it's like it moved 3-dimensional. If you could just go back to the section.
Yeah, and the garage is kind of mislabeled across the
Yeah.
bathroom.
I apologize. That actually is not an accurate representation.
Okay, I just want to make sure I wasn't missing something.
No, and
Okay.
thank you.
Okay.
It takes an architect, I
Yeah.
guess, to bust another architect.
Sorry.
The envelope of the building is correct there, but obviously that stair is floating in space and it doesn't show the right headroom. And I think it's something that happened when we switched what I was talking about. We had a junior ADU there and then we flipped the stair around and somehow that,
Okay.
I
Okay.
apologize, that
Okay.
section didn't get
Okay.
updated.
Just wanted to make sure
Yeah.
I wasn't missing something. Okay. I do have a question, I guess, for staff. Do we know what, if there's any additional zoning requirements for property lines that go into the road, like with the cul-de-sac, where the setback would be measured for building when you've got the cul-de-sac coming into the property?
We would look at the property line, even though it looks as though it's in the cul-de-sac itself.
Okay, so
We determine from the property line.
okay. And so if a ADU is legally able to be 4 feet from the property line, but the cul-de-sac is there, obviously, it would have to Just theoretically speaking, sorry, I know it's.
It would have to be
well
4
done.
feet from a property line, yes.
Is this property, it's a little hard to see. Does this property line extend into the road?
Yeah, you can see it. It looks like it.
On which?
It looks like it does. So if you go to A 1.0, the cul-de-sac sort of dips into the property line. So I think it's a similar issue we saw in the last project where the road was actually within the property line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They had an easement at that piece, yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Okay.
So it
Is there
does
an
go
easement
into.
here? Is there an easement
Not-
for this road?
Is there an easement here? It doesn't look like it to me.
Okay.
But it definitely, there is a curve. I see what you're speaking about now. There is a curve that part of the cul-de-sac and the property line is outside of that. So we would look at the property line.
Great, thank you.
That's what you're talking about, correct, board member? So there's a curve right there and the property line goes straight across. So yeah. That would
Okay,
be,
that's all
yeah,
the
thank you.
questions for me.
Other questions?
I have a question. So I don't know what's north and south here. I'm turned around, but of the ADU, so we have a 30-foot height from the rock all the way up to the top of the garage. It's 30 feet. And underneath the ADU, that's all fill. Have you sort of thought I mean, the issue that I see there is potentially, are you thinking of it more of a building that's 30 feet high, or is it kind of like a rock outcropping that sort of envelops the bottom level? So it feels like it's a more horizontal datum versus a vertical datum. Just wanted to see what your thinking was there, because that does change the verticality of that area, but it's not really a question, so maybe I won't ask this.
No, but maybe I can try to address what I heard you say. I mean, I think the first point I want to make about it is that we felt like gathering all the massing of the house into one consolidated structure was better than trying to disperse it on the lot. The second point is that it's all within the allowable zoning envelope. And in fact, the house isn't even proposed to be developed to its full potential. I think there's still 600 and some odd square feet on the table that we're not asking for. Because of the topography, the steepness of it, which you could see in the photographs, there's that kind of diagonal drop off to that one corner, and we sort of set everything so that it didn't exceed the height limit. So it wasn't, that we're trying to make the building high. It's that we were trying to work within the allowable envelope, get an ADU, get a garage, work with the topography, and this is kind of what came out of it.
I have a question for staff, which I was going to save for later, but since you brought it up, and maybe this is a dumb question, but I'll ask anyway. If you break up like the proposal in 3 sections, like vertically, like you have the garage, well, start from the bottom, you have like the foundation and fill, and then you have the ADU, and then you have the garage. We obviously cannot comment on the ADU. What about this, like the foundation that's holding up the whole structure? Is that considered part of the ADU and like we can't comment on it, or is it?
I think we should be able to comment on it. I mean,
I think you
it's a
can.
wall.
I think you can. It's a wall, it's a structure, and you can comment on
The
that.
structure that the application we're looking at sits on, right?
Correct.
Okay, so it wasn't a dumb question. It was.
There are no such,
It's a good question.
board member Rosner, there are no such things as stupid questions.
Can I just maybe direct your attention to A 7.1, which is a cut and fill diagram. There isn't really that much fill proposed. In fact, there's 3 times as much cut going on as there is fill. So we're going to have to do some export. So just to give you an idea that even the ADU, which I guess, theoretically you can't comment on, is pretty much an excavation into the existing hillside, except for that corner.
It's steep.
Yeah.
It is steep.
Okay. Any other questions?
I have a question for staff, but it can wait till we deliver before we do.
Any other questions for the applicant? If there's anyone here, so I think we're good on questions, but we're going to open up the public. Anybody here wish to speak on this project? And we'll go to the Zoom call. If you're on the Zoom call and you wish to speak about this project, please use the raise hand feature.
Give me just one moment. Chair Chung, I have no raised hands.
All right, thank you. You do have additional 5 minutes if you'd like to make any closing comments.
Well, I think I can't really think of anything else to say at this time. I appreciate your consideration. My hope is to position the house for the longer term to more contemporary standards. It's a great lot. It's got great views. It's got its challenges, with the topography. So thank you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. With that, we'll close the public portion of the meeting. You said you had a question for staff?
Yeah, I have a question for staff. What has been the review, if any, or requirements from the fire department with respect to the driveway width and turnaround? I know there's requirements, if the driveway's over 100 feet with a turnaround, and I don't know how it works like retroactive, and it's obviously it's an addition within a footprint. So just like, what's the latest on that? And how
So we do circulate these plans to the fire department for review. And there are cases where they make them make changes, and I think it has to do with what percentages are changing. And I don't know if we have any comments from the fire department with respect to the driveway or access or emergency at all on this particular project. But we do circulate to them and they do review plans.
And do you know of any from a turnaround perspective, how should we be thinking about minimums or requirements for this property, if any?
I don't think, so do you mean when you come down onto the street or
No,
within?
like going into their up the driveway, right now there's, for example, if there was a change to the garage location that was like you drive straight in, then that, and I'm not advocating for this, I'm just saying as illustrative, like you remove a lot of the turnaround, because currently the design is you're backing out of the garage into that space. And if that space doesn't exist, for example, like if they put the ADU in there, which he kind of said he explored, I'm just trying to understand, at what point does the fire department, what requirements would the fire department have specifically for parking and turnarounds?
Actually, I wouldn't be able to answer that question. We rely on them to provide us the information. They generally care more about how it interacts with the public or for internal fire safety. But I can't answer that question as to what they would require. And most of what you're talking about is on the private, and they do concern themselves more with what's happening on the public roadways and how they get from the public either water access or have to get an emergency vehicle there. So, but we don't have any comments from them with respect to that on this, or any comments for this project.
I thank you.
All right. With that, we will begin. You haven't gone first yet.
Okay. I initially thought it was a very, very interesting, great plan. When looking at the story poles, I was very concerned about the overall mass effect. But then when you go back and look at really two key points for me was the way that you utilize glass on the first level it opened that up and the landscaping that's there. I thought it solved that problem. If, you know, there could be some discussion about making the garage slightly smaller, but other than that, I would approve this project.
Okay. Suzanne?
I think my only comment is that one corner. It just really bothers me how tall it is. And I'm like, I'm thinking of Miles and what he would have done, and he would have probably broken it up. And so he would have put the portion that's underneath the ADU, and he would have made that part of the landscape. So we would make that as like as a datum from which you look at the whole building as a horizontal piece and not so much as a vertical piece. And I think that would probably make the neighbors feel like it's not this big, massive thing. So maybe breaking that up with some kind of different materiality, like rock or something that makes it feel like more of the earth, and then have that separated from the piece above. Ooh. That's my only comment. I think it's a beautiful plan. I think it's a beautiful massing, actually. I just would want to just separate that one big thing because it's huge. It's 10 feet. It's a third of that piece. And it feels like it needs to be grounded. So have a datum there. That's a different materiality. That's the only thing I would comment on the design.
All right, thanks. Alex.
I think I'm a little, first I'll say, I love this house. I love, love, love it. It's by far top 2 favorite houses in this neighborhood. With that said, the massing of that entire addition, I don't know if have you been there? I was pretty surprised when I looked at the setbacks and it was 18 feet. I was like, wow, it does not feel like it, because it is so steep. It is vertical at that point. And that 10-foot, you know, base foundation is a lot. And I mean, if we think that just a material change would have a significant impact, I'd be open to discussing that. It's just like the location of it now and that steepness, you can't really plant anything substantial to have any sort of landscape screening to break up that vertical. It is very vertical mass right now. And I would love to see, you know, what I love about that house and that elevation is you have it kind of as you turn the corner, you see, I don't know if it's the current living room or something, and then it pushes in and then it comes back out. But now I kind of want to see that pushed back, like instead of bringing up 4 feet towards the road, I want to see it like back 4 feet from the existing like loft, because I think it would just give it a bit more. I think it would reduce the massing. I think also as you push uphill, that base layer is just going to be less and less, especially at that corner. But you know, I understand and that's kind of when I was asking about like the base rack at the back. Like I measured 8 feet, you know, of that rock, and it's like
It's on rock, right? It's on rock. That backside is all rock.
yeah, but you know, like I won't pretend to be a structural engineer and say, oh, you can just like excavate some of that out and you expand the driveway, or you can, you know, it's a 24-foot garage, which is like, you know, you could trim that back to 20 feet in depth, which is like the average depth of a garage. I mean, I'd like to have the discussion. Again, it's one of those things where I think what they're proposing is not like superfluous. I think it's an appropriate proposal. It's a very challenging condition and site, and that vertical mass is a lot. It's a lot, and I would love to see if there's some areas to kind of reduce that. And yes, some are extreme, some are, you know, I'd love to find a solution that's not extreme. But I think it's a challenge when you, you know, and hearing, I did hear the perspective from the neighbors who wrote the letter, who I think are traveling, and weren't, you know, expressed that they weren't able to speak tonight, but that they shared that concern is, you know, when they walk out their front door, it's 30 feet of just vertical mass. So
All right, hold that thought.
yeah.
Baby.
Yeah, I've got some thoughts. First of all, I certainly understand the singular move, given the existing architecture. I think that, you know, parts of that are very elegant. I think it's definitely locating a two-car garage on that side is the smart way to go. I think you need that. 22 feet is a standard kind of minimum turnaround for, you know, if you have back-to-back parking, you know, in like commercial settings. So I think that that's a very helpful, because I drove all the way in there and had to turn around, and it was no fun doing that. So I understand all that. When I went down to the cul-de-sac, that is a big monolithic plane. Good point on the windows, but that is still a big, long, very tall wall at the end. And I do have an issue with that, given the hillside setting and breaking down massing and that sort of thing. I do have some thoughts with that. One is, because the office and bathroom is next to the garage and over the ADU, we've got a lot of additional lot coverage. The ADU doesn't count. If it were separated, it also has a 16-foot height unless it's connected. So it would have to be nestled down. Couple thoughts on reducing mass, which is something, and consequently lot coverage, is if the two-car garage were approved, and again, not trying to design, but just thinking where the massing goes, if that was slid over so that that big wall didn't just go straight over, that the garage mass was pulled closer to the house, there's some other creative solution to put the added square footage, which they have allowance for more square footage. They're not over. So if the garage slid over, and then, as one of you guys said, the ADU is tucked below and slides out, then you're going to get that emphasis in the horizontal, and you're going to diminish that mass. You're not going to have this 30-foot tall corner. And I question if it's really 30 feet, because that was really steep. So that's kind of one idea, to just think about massing. It's not about the ADU, but maybe separating the ADU is the way to reduce this feeling of this big, massive, tall structure right there. The other, I just have two other thoughts, and then I'll be quiet. One is, one idea, again, dealing with mass, and the first initial thing when I kind of looked at the drawings and looked at the story poles is, I think that I looked at the landscape plan as well, and it talks about ceanothus at the bottom, and I know it's really steep. Ceanothus, I don't think is big enough. I think that there needs to be something taller there. And in order to do that, you have to create a little bit of flat. And I think that could be created by, for instance, pushing in the foundation a little bit so that the top portion cantilevers a little bit. What that does is creates a little bit of flat area below. You could then extend that out 3 feet with some Corten steel and get some podocarpus in there or something like that. But I think that there needs to be more creative work done on how to landscape it in such a way to diminish the feel of that wall, and possibly look at changing the massing around. You know, I appreciate that singular gesture, I do. And if it weren't on a steep drop off, I think I would feel more comfortable with that. But that's just that's a lot of vertical right there. So.
It's more of a, it's a bigger gesture than just materiality than housing adjustment. But it sounds like what we're saying is that massing may not be right. Something needs to be done. Another iteration needs to be done.
I think so.
So my,
Oh, I was, would you just clarify, when you were talking about different material, were you talking about taking this corner out? Is that what you meant by trying to get
Yeah, so this would be either.
rock or, but look like it comes out of the hillside and it's
or it could
shorter?
be Completely cantilevered.
Mhm.
I love that tension.
yes. So
Yeah.
my comments on it was, you know, when I saw the drawings, I definitely had some of the same concerns. Once I got out there, you know, clearly it's on the hillside. I guess for me, I was a little bit less concerned because it's at the back of a cul-de-sac and all the other homes face the
Agree.
other way, right? So I don't think it's not like the house that you're gonna drive by every single day, right? It is literally the end of the cul-de-sac. And so, that said, I agree with the comments from the other board members, and like what regularly happens is we continue it and it comes back with the design that I like more, and I think there is a better.
Brian, can you make sure that mic is on? Because I'm not getting anything.
Sorry, how about that?
I thought, I know I don't
Some of
hear
the
that
same
well, but it's really driving me crazy.
All right, so yes, I think that a continuance would provide for a number of different, you know, giving the applicant / architect an opportunity to come back and you know, do something specifically. I think specifically that lower corner is the piece that has some improvement in, whether it's materials, whether it's inset, whether it's, you know, something else, or something that it provides for some screening there. I think there's a better design that could be had. So
Would you be happy with vegetation and
I mean, that was
landscaping, just
what-
hiding that corner, or?
that was my initial, I was like, you know, actually just like good landscaping right there would solve it for me, but the kind of the nature of the hill, it's not, I think you'd have to do something to accommodate for it. I don't know exactly what that is, and instead of trying to design it tonight, I think if we, it sounds like we're leaning toward a continuance to give the applicant an opportunity to come back with a revised design that addresses some of the concerns.
Makes sense.
Okay. With that, do we have a motion? I'm sorry, what date would we be looking at? Are we up against any,
Question. When do we have? Also, we have to ask the applicant how long they might need as well. Let's see. We won't make
And
it
if you
through.
could provide some dimensions on that, that would be so helpful.
So we have, I think this meeting here is kind of booked, the 17th, is April 17th. So April's kind of shot in a way. We'd have to move to May 1st or May 15th.
and are we good on Permit Streamlining Act?
Yes.
On that date? Okay, so it's continue it to the May 1st.
We could do that to May Day.
So let's,
be perfect.
why don't we do, why don't we just open up the public hearing really quickly to ask the applicant if that date would work for them?
We just have really full calendars in April, so you know. Okay.
Okay,
Is May 1st okay? May Day's fine? Okay, great.
all right. We have a motion.
I'll make a motion, but I just want to say it's a beautiful design.
I
like to make
agree.
like to make a motion to continue it to a May 1st.
And do we have a second on that motion? I'll second it.
Oh, I'm gonna ask, I was gonna bring something, one thing. I did just want to remind the board, just to give any other direction, they're requesting a variance. We did not discuss the findings of the variance, and I don't know if it makes sense to, if people have opinions that they can make the findings, just so the applicant has a little more certainty of what an iteration might have to be, or if
So maybe,
Anyone had a-
all right, so just to make sure I'm not going to get in trouble with our town lawyer, since there's a motion on the floor,
Well,
We should.
go ahead, you go ahead.
There's a motion on the board, you should go, you should vote on the motion.
Okay, so all those in favor of the motion to continue?
Did someone make a motion?
Yeah, we had a motion, we had a second.
You know,
You
we
did.
don't know what the design is gonna be.
Yeah, it's gonna come
The
back.
findings are gonna
We'll have
change.
Opportunity to comment.
So it probably makes sense to, yeah.
Okay. So
there
all
is a
those in
vote
favor of
for
the
it.
motion to continue to the May 1st meeting? Aye.
Hi.
Opposed? None. All right, motion, the application continues to May 1. With that, we move to the last application in this evening's agenda.
And I would like to disclose for the record that I have a conflict of interest regarding this upcoming project. And I reside at a property that is within 500 feet of the property involved in this matter. Under the Political Reform Act, I am required to recuse myself from participating in any discussion, deliberation, or vote on this item. Accordingly, I will leave the meeting room during the consideration of this item. So does that mean I leave now?
You're done.
You're done.
All right, have a nice evening.
Thank you I would never have come up with that. It's not how I think.
All right, last item on this evening's agenda, PH 5, 2360 Paradise Drive. Take it away.
Just give the board member a moment to leave the room. That would be the most appropriate thing. Thank you.
Screen right here. Okay.
All right, bye.
Okay, good evening, board members. Thank you. My name's Alex and I'm a landscape designer with Integrated Design Studio based out of Mill Valley. I'm presenting a variance request on behalf of my client of an as-built stepped rear fence that borders the southwest property lines of 2360 Paradise Drive, which runs along Linda Vista Avenue. John and Julie Stewart are sitting beside me. They're the homeowners. All right, as context, we have, you can hear me, we have the aerial view and site context. We have Paradise Drive and 2360 property, and then Linda Vista is on the south side of that property. And the rear stepped back fence is along right here where Linda Vista is. Linda Vista is a private road and it's not a maintained city road. And you can see from the aerial view that it is much narrower than the surrounding roads. Okay, again, as mentioned, we're here tonight to request a height variance for an as-built step backyard fence along the southwest property along Linda Vista Avenue. And the height of the fence is 5 feet 9 inches to 8 feet 8 inches. As meant, oh, oops.
You're so soft-spoken, we can't hear you. We turn the volume up.
Okay. We're going to look at pre-model project conditions. You can see from the photo here, it's a very old fence. It's dilapidated, falling over, dangerous. Prior to the remodel, the fence actually fell over multiple times in a storm in the winter of 2024. And there's a pre-project double gate that swung blindly outwards into the 10-foot wide section of Linda Vista Ave. Yes, you can barely see there's a little green rod right there. Actually, that's propping the fence up as well too. Very dangerous condition. Here we are. I'm going to actually go ahead a slide. Here's our as-built site plan condition. We're zoomed in here to Linda Vista Avenue. You can see the orange line right there is the as-built fence. And you can see from here is the sloping condition from the north side of the property to the south. Go back one. And here, this section illustrates the steep slope that's coming on the left would be their property, and it slopes down to Linda Vista Avenue, and the property line is right there. And then we have the fence, and there's an 18-inch sloping condition that drops off between the property line and Linda Vista Avenue. Something to note that's important is the property slopes down from Paradise Drive to Linda Vista Avenue at an average slope of 15%. Dropping 18.5 feet from the northern boundary to the southern property boundary. This pronounced elevation makes the 6-foot fence appear significantly lower when viewed from Linda Vista Avenue. Here is our as-built elevation. And here you can see the sloping slate that's parallel along Linda Vista Avenue. We have the step fence, and we have a rolling gate there atop a curb and a wall. And here, like I said, the rolling gate was installed to replace the former outswing double gate due to safety concerns. And the brick curb was necessary to allow for a level track to roll over it. And here is the approved gate and fence that was approved in the plans. The image on this slide shows the 4-foot tall fence with a 2-foot open lattice. And this is the fence that was constructed based on the approved detail. And we're going to move to as-built site condition photos. This is a view from the property facing southwest. Here you can see the bay, and you can see the condition of the fence with the neighbors behind and that sloping hillside. And this is our as-built condition view facing west when you're viewing it from along Linda Vista Ave. And then this is our view facing east. And here, this photo illustrates that sloping condition that the site is working with. And we're going to move on to justification for variance. Here on the left, again, we're showing the site's unique slope requires a taller fence to maintain existing privacy for the owners and for the neighbors. You can see actually how low that fence appears when viewed from up above in their kitchen. On the right side is an illustration of showing the neighboring fence behind and showing that their fence is actually lower than that fence. And this is a photo just showing that the as-built fence benefits the neighborhood and by maintaining privacy for the homeowners, and it also follows the site's unique topography. And we're going to end with a before and as-built photo. And again, the photo of the as-built fence demonstrates the improvements made to the site conditions. The primary goal of this design was to preserve the charm of the 100-year-old home. They just went through an extensive remodel of their house. And yeah, the homeowners have gone to great lengths to maintain the integrity of the existing conditions, reflecting their commitment to thoughtful and respectful design.
Any questions for the applicant?
I have a big question.
Yeah.
That brick wall looks like it's over the property line. Are the footings also over the property line?
No.
Okay, so it is that wall that is over the property line. Okay.
No.
Any other questions? Any question?
How far over the property line are we talking about?
12 inches, I think.
So the fence runs along the property line right there.
But he's saying how far
So
out does the brick
how
go?
far out? It's 8 inches maybe.
Yeah.
Can I ask council, how do we deal with that? Because it's not this is actually pretty, I thought it was a pretty bright line. If you're over the property line, you can't do that unless you have an easement, right?
How did you handle it? I would be curious first to learn.
Good question. It was Sam's project, so I'm just trying to pull up some notes here. I don't know that we, make sure we had.
Because we would, if we see some kind of, issue, we would get surveys, we'd get it peer reviewed, we'd sort of confirm what's going on. But that would have to happen with,
We
town
do have a
staff.
survey.
And then
There's the survey.
Because when there were issues, when it went over the property line, there was usually some kind of agreement with something. And if not, like we made the homeowner actually,
Right.
this was before your time, but we have
But
actually
I
had
think my understanding the fence is within the property, right? Or-
the brick wall is not. It's
There's a brick,
outside.
there's like almost footing underneath. If you look at the photos, there's a brick footing underneath, really where the sliding gate is.
It's that cement footing that we're
Right.
looking at right
Yeah.
there, correct?
Right.
Thing,
And-
yeah, that's over the property
And-
line.
And clarify, who owns that road? Every house that touches it?
is it
It's a right of way.
town,
It's a
like,
town public right of
Oh, the
way.
township has the right of way.
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
So normally we would have an easement if they were coming into it or an encroachment of some type from the Public Works Department.
Sorry, I didn't mean to.
No, it's a good question.
But it is the wall wasn't. I thought the gate went through an application. The gate had gone through an application already?
This is an as-built fence. They're coming in for the variance for it. They didn't get a permit for it
They
originally.
did not get a permit for it.
No,
Okay,
that's why, yeah, so we consider that what we call an as-built fence.
okay.
And so when they had to come in to get permits, we knew they had to get a variance. I am not sure that. It's really the sliding gate.
Do you know-
It's, I mean, the property line is the property line unless there's an.
No, I'm not, I'm
Yeah,
in
that's
no
what I'm
way.
concerned about. Like, I think
Yeah,
this opens it up a can of worms, sorry.
Do you know what would Public Works involvement be in that? Would have?
they would have to go through an encroachment permit process with Public Works. And we would have to determine if there's any impact to the roadway or passageway. There would have to be a permitting process. I don't see that that's taken place.
And because it's a private road, does that have anything to, does that matter?
It might, I
Might.
just haven't
Okay.
looked into I didn't, wasn't aware about the property line issue.
Looks like.
And so I just don't have the answers. There are different processes that we go through as a town, when that happens, when it's raised.
And so all the planting is not within the property line, so we can't even talk about planting in front because there's nothing to plant. Unless it's,
You mean to suggest landscaping in front of the
yeah,
fence?
cause it's not, it's not their
But
property.
yeah, I'm a little concerned just simply because we don't have an encroachment. Have you spoken to Public Works at all about this, or has this the first been brought up?
Or, for the back part, no, there hasn't been. No.
No.
Sorry, but the fence is on the property line.
Fence is-
The fence is.
It's on the inside
this blue
inboard,
line?
right? The footings are
on-
inboard of the property line, so it's
It-
fully
It
compliant.
also looks like the operable moving fence
Mhm.
is off the property, is into the public right of way, atop that wall. You show the blue line in your L 2.0. Yeah, if you see that little piece there, you're indicating it's an as-built operable wood fence.
Mhm.
And that's the piece I think that goes into the right of way. If it, because you have a space there that would connect if it wasn't the operable one. The option is put the operable sliding part on the inside of the fence if you really want to have that operable. Or we're gonna have to look at an encroachment permit. I don't know if anybody brought that up before, and I do apologize.
Does an encroachment permit prevent us from making a decision on the fence tonight?
Yes, because I don't know
Okay.
if they will let us do that, and they just sat through
Okay.
3 hours.
But is there not a condition of improve?
Well, I mean,
But they can still request a like.
the variance is for the height, but
It's for the height.
with respect to the encroachment, I mean, how would I do a condition with that board member where I would say to them, if you don't get the encroachment permit, you have to come back with a redesign? I would rather, I would,
Why wouldn't we be able to,
Prove the design.
hypothetically speaking, because we haven't had the deliberation, but approve the height and that it can't exceed a certain height, and if they have to, for example, like they don't get the encroachment permit, they have to build a retaining wall and get rid of the gate or change the gate, but it's still the height. The height is the variance, I think, on our side.
the height is the variance
Yeah.
piece, but if the fence that is the variance is not sitting on a property line, who am I approving it for, right? That's the question, is it's not within the private property. So what I kind of said was, if that operable fence was placed on the interior, it would be wholly on their property. It appears to me that the rolling fence and that little wall is in the right of way on Linda Vista Avenue.
Dana, does it make sense that since we're not holding up building or anything like that, that we wait for an encroachment approval before we
Well,
approve this?
That's true, 'cause it's already existing.
I would actually advise that we continue it until we figure out the encroachment issue.
Right.
And, there are 3 different kind of encroachment to public right of way. We need to figure out which one this is. So we'll do the encroachment process and then come back with sort of the entitlement process. The encroachment's already part of it. And so we'll kind of do it all at once. But I think we should continue it for tonight. Yeah.
And that, actually, this is an existing fence, so we're not prohibiting them from having a fence or putting any kind of safety issue with respect to the
Right.
fence that was coming down. And so we can figure that part out and work with them. If we can't get the encroachment, then the design changes with respect to the rolling piece. It can go internal if you really want the rolling piece.
We couldn't, so go back, we couldn't have a condition of approval that just basically said that
They need to go through the encroachment process.
Exactly, and then if they don't go through that, then our approval they don't get our approval.
I think
And
the-
that,
I think the
and that way it's not
conservative-
back into, what's that?
The conservative advice or the advice I would feel comfortable with is that we figure out what this issue is. I wasn't aware, and it looks like, this was missed somewhere. And so I think it would just be cleaner if we figure this out first. And I understand that makes sense. And I just feel more comfortable sort of just advising that we continue, clean up the encroachment and then come back for the design approval.
Part of the complaint was landscaping, and there's no place to landscape unless it's Public Works
Yeah, but
approves
that's
the
a
landscaping.
complaint that we have not.
I know. So messy.
Yeah.
I think most of the work here is, we could put this on one of the April, whatever that is, because it'll be, and put it up first. What was that? 17? We could do that by the
But so for,
17th.
so for clarification, is there, because the other thing is that because we haven't deliberated on it yet, then like, we don't necessarily know what everybody's going to say. So I guess I hear that
You're
that's a
right.
conservative of like sorting everything out, but it's
Yeah.
also, there's the design review board issue that we have tonight that we also have to sort out. So
Mhm.
I don't understand why the one needs to get sorted out before the other. We could sort ours out first, and then the other one could be sorted out as the second problem to deal with, right? Like why do,
Yeah.
as opposed to like, they sort out the encroachment issue, they're back
Right.
at the design review board, only to then hear that the deliberations goes another way, and they've wasted a whole bunch of time on the encroachment permit, or they're already here before us tonight to hear it. So I guess from a chair standpoint, I would be inclined to go ahead and hear and deliberate on it this evening, so that we at least know where the board stands on it.
That sounds okay to me. I mean, we haven't even opened public comment on this item, as
Yeah,
I
so-
understand. Yeah, so we have to follow the
All right,
process, so we do
let-
that,
let's-
yeah.
I'd like to go ahead and,
Yeah.
so thank you for bringing up the point. I'd like to go ahead and continue the process and see at least where we get to, because then it might negate either needing to do that or whatever. And then we can kind of just decide how we proceed with a potential condition on an encroachment form. All right. So with that, any additional questions for the applicant? Okay. So with that, we'll open it up to public comments. Since there's no one else here, we'll take it to the Zoom call to see if there's any public comment on the Zoom call.
Chair Chung, I have one hand raised. I'm going to turn on the audio for Peter Smart.
Okay. If you could state your full name, your address, and keep your comments at 3 minutes, please.
Absolutely. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Wonderful. This is Peter Smart. I'm here with my wife, Kathleen. Yes, this is a British accent. I hope you're not going to hold that against me. Yeah, we're the homeowners directly opposite the fence and the gate, and I'm the author of the late mail. I just wanted to add that we're genuinely really pleased for John and Julie as they settle into their home. We know they've worked really hard for that. We truly value good neighborly relations with them and everyone around us, and we have every intention of maintaining that here. Our objections are detailed in our letter. We're simply hoping for a resolution that supports their privacy while also preserving the visual integrity of our side of the street, specifically a more thoughtful gate design that blends with the fence without the undue burden of a wall that extends beyond the property line, tracks or industrial hardware facing us. This could all readily be placed on their side. Secondly, tall landscaping that better screens the new elevated fence height and restores the softer aesthetic. I do want to draw a concern that if there's an easement required here or a variance that would stop John and Julie putting in landscaping, that is of great concern to us because there was landscaping there originally, which has now been destroyed and taken away. And so we would need to see that replaced. I do want to make clear that we raised our concern about the gate early on, particularly the encroachment beyond the property line, and we were told categorically that it had been approved by the town. We learned just yesterday this wasn't true, so that's genuinely stung. We remain committed to working together towards a solution that respects everyone's enjoyment of their homes. I know it's super late in the evening here, but we thank you for your time and your thoughtful consideration.
All right, thank you. Anybody else on the Zoom call?
There are no more comments, Chair.
Okay, thank you. All right, with that, the applicant does have an additional 5 minutes if you'd like to address any of the concerns that were raised.
Page 18, if we can. So there we go. Thanks. So, look, I don't want to get into it. He said, she said.
If you could state your name.
Sorry, John Stewart, along with Julie. We own 2360 Paradise Drive, the house in question. We did not intentionally mislead the Smarts. We did say categorically the gate's not up for discussion. To at this point unwind, it will be a major undertaking to move that wall. That's that's the only condition under which we will do that is if that's what the design review board mandates that we'll do it. So apologies if that was misconstrued or misunderstood. It is important to point out that the Smarts acquired their home in April of 2022, and our design review board hearing to approve our design was in June of 2020. So, unfortunately, they just didn't have the opportunity to weigh in advance of the design. I think, not to dismiss their concerns. I think had we had the opportunity to have their feedback, I did not meet Peter until after the gate was already up. So, had we had the opportunity to meet with them and take their feedback prior to construction, we certainly would have done that. I do want to focus on this picture. Picture's worth 1,000 words. For obvious reasons, their home is oriented towards the south, right? Towards the panoramic view of Angel Island, the bay, and the Golden Gate Bridge. To me, there's really three important takeaways from this photo. Number one, it demonstrates the downward sloping topography from both north to south and east to west along Linda Vista, which is why, in addition to the private or the safety issues with having a gate that swings out into Linda Vista, you know, you need a stable base to have a sliding gate to keep it from collapsing on itself like the pre-project gate did. But number two, this is really important to me. If you focus on the Smarts home, there's not a single pane of glass on the north side of their home, not one, right? Not one. So they don't have, you know, let alone the primary views that we've talked about earlier, they don't have a view whatsoever of the fence. And then number three, the gate, it's important to note, the gate's not even visible in this picture, right? So the gate's not even directly across from their property. It's out of the picture to the left. They did, actually, if you look at their comment, they actually provided the view from their front door. This is the view from their front door, right? All you can see is that gazebo at the bottom right. That's what you see from their front door. Remember, there's not a single pane of glass. Once you open the front door, you see the gazebo. So with all that said, thank you for hearing us out for this opportunity. We'd obviously appreciate the variance for the as-built conditions. We'll certainly look to the design review board for guidance, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had a quick question. What was the fence design for the 2020 remodel? Was there any fence included in those plans, or just the existing fence that obviously deteriorated? What just was the history?
Yeah, no, it was, and I think if you look at Alex's, let's go back to what page is that? This is, so again, this is what was represented. So again, it was the solid 4 feet and then the 2 feet lattice at the top.
I see. Okay.
So we did build.
The design was approved.
The
but
design was
height-
approved.
The height just changed as you built it. Okay.
You know, it appears more steep because of the 18-inch drop from our property to Linda Vista. It's higher from the outside than from the inside of the property.
Oh, so that was from the elevation from your yard,
Right.
Because of the okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Good. Any other questions for the applicant? All right. With that, we will close the public portion of the hearing and bring it back to the board. Haven't gone first yet tonight. I'm happy to lead us off. So I very distinctly remember I was on the board when this one came through the last time, as were you. I think we heard it a couple times because there was some concerns from two neighbors. And so I think with these as-builts, it's always easy to focus on like this thing's already built, but I think that the thing I always try to go to is like, hey, if this was part of the original application, because this is an entire house that had a remodel done to it. So I always go to like, hey, if this was proposed as part of the original application, how would we feel about it? And at the time, one of the neighbors that had the biggest concern was a neighbor that had privacy concerns that was from the, kind of the new upstairs windows that were being created that used to be an attic. You would be able to look down, and I distinctly remember her talking about how she sunbathed and how she really wanted the privacy to be able to kind of shield her from that. And the older fence had some mature like landscaping across the top, and the concern was like if that went away, like what would that cause? And so if I were to go back to the original application and this was the proposed fence at this height, like I'd have no problem with it at all. I think there's also the condition of the road behind it and how it drops down, like very similar to, I think it's hard for us to get behind a fence variance when it's all flat lots and everybody has the exact same fence. I think it's a lot easier when there is an elevation change or something that dictates that. As far as the gate goes, I think if it come through, I've been like, oh, maybe it would have been better on the other side. But in the end, like it's the applicant that's looking out toward the views into that fence every single day. It's not the parking on the other side that's looking at that fence. And either way, that gate is a massive improvement over the one that was being held up with a couple of sticks. So, so yeah, as far as at least what we're really looking at here is, I think, fence design and the variance. You know, I would be supportive of both. But maybe, you know, Suzanne, you were also on the board at the time and kind of curious to hear your thoughts on it. Next.
I think I'm really in line with you. The only thing is the planting. And it would be nice to have a little bit of planting, but I don't know, can the town plant in their public works? We can't speculate on that.
No, I mean, I want to sort of reiterate that, and I know it seems like I'm focusing on a small thing, but you know, we can do the approval today with the condition that they get the encroachment permit. But if we find out that we can't issue an encroachment permit in this part of the town or whatever, then we have approved something we don't know we have the power to do. So that's why I'm recommending sort of a continuance. We could still go with an approval and condition it on this encroachment permit process, but it could well be that that condition's impossible to perform, and that puts everyone in sort of a bad situation. And that's the outcome I
So-
would like to avoid.
I guess one of the questions I have is like, are we sure that we need an encroachment? Because like, would our actual like condition, if we were to condition something, be like that you have to get encroachment permit, or just that the entire design that we're reviewing today is within like either the property or? Is either within the property or like that, essentially the application that we're reviewing is.
Right, except for
correctly-
that little section maybe that I mean, I guess.
Because it looks as though if I might, that the rest of the fence, absent that piece where the wall is and the rolling piece, is on the property line. So could we bifurcate here and but then I think, then we're really splitting hairs. Because it's the variance that we're looking at.
Well, let's, why don't we burn this bridge in like 5 minutes after we
Okay.
finish, like.
Well, that
everything
was,
else is coming.
sorry.
But the design, I can approve an 8-foot variance.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so variance,
Yeah.
and then,
Yeah, it's unique topography. It's such a significant improvement. And, you know, they use the terms thoughtful and respectful. Absolutely. I would vote and support this very strongly.
okay.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. I was looking, was there an email that came through as late mail, but I can't find it.
Yeah, the very last page of their exhibit. I've got it here. If you want.
Pair of-
It's on the website.
I'm staring at it and I'm not seeing it. The thing that I was gonna say is, I mean, I can certainly make the findings for the variance, given the elevation changes. I think the design it's really pretty, and it does not feel like an 8-foot fence, right? I think there's the one section of the gate, and the reason why I brought up the email was like, the one thing that stands out to me is, yeah, like you know, try and paint the black, you know, gray to kind of fade in a little bit, which I thought was already written in the email, which I can't find right now. Thank you.
Very last page of that exhibit.
Yeah, and you know, so we agree to paint the black metal hardware to try and match the natural wood. I mean, I think that takes care of.
I think the other thing is this wood's gonna darken up over time, like it's new wood. And I think that over time it'll darken up and be a little less,
I think they wanted it softened because with vegetation, but.
I mean, vegetation.
I don't think that.
I think if you look at the
No
old
room
pictures,
for
if you just don't do anything in that area, there's probably gonna end up being vegetation
Yeah.
there one day. But I don't think like it's outside of our
Like
ability
veggie.
to specify something that's on
Tree
town
cutting.
property.
Yeah, I guess where I was going with this is like, there's a little bit of contrast where the gate is, and I think that can be, you know, fade away with a little bit of paint, which I don't even, it seems like it's already, you know, been agreed on. I don't have any issues as
To always plant it on their side and have it kind of vine over, but I think that's splitting hairs.
yeah. Anyway, I'm
Okay.
um,
And
sorry.
Sure what this buffer means.
But I'm-
So you, for of the variance, okay.
It's a beautiful fence.
Yeah, I mean, it also solves a problem, which the outswing fence going into a very small like roadway. So now now we're back to,
What do we do?
yeah, I guess I'm trying to figure out what the downside of just saying that like there's a condition of approval that states that, you know, what we've reviewed today is properly like either
It's within the property line. Everything else where
it's either within the property line or has the appropriate encroachment permits. And then if it doesn't, then essentially our approval doesn't stand. And but on the chance that like,
We know something's in the public right of way, we can't approve something on it, right? Like we don't until we have the right encroachment permit or sort of something from the town that allows it. So if you know, I mean, you can, if there is a part of, you know, the rest of the fence that's not in the public right of way, you can approve that. If we want to approve anyway, then I would say that the condition would have to be really strongly drafted, and it would be something like, as long as there's an encroachment, and if not, if we can't issue the encroachment, the fence in that area would have to be removed. I would want some really protective language for the town in that, because you as a board don't want to be in a position where you're approving something you don't have. I mean, if you're approving something in the public right of way, you don't have the the ability to approve something in the right of way until we've gone through the public works process.
so we definitively know that this is in the public right of way.
It shows it, if you look at the survey, it shows it, and it's something that's been missed, so.
Is this a topographic map or is this a recorded survey?
Recorded survey. Yeah.
Then doesn't this have to be removed from our agenda tonight? I mean, just
So-
removed whether we wanted to or not?
I would probably say like
I
just
would
continue it.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Alright, so it sounds like at least the applicant now knows where the board likely stands on
Yeah.
if they were to have to go sit through another 3 hours of our meeting. Hopefully we can get them first.
I know,
agenda
I
next
know.
time. All right, so with that, I think we'd be looking for a continuance to provide the applicant enough time to
Square away the encroachment,
Thank
you know,
right,
public
so-
right of ways.
Movement for continuance.
to
Can we, so I would say April 17th, April 17th. And we'll put you first on the agenda
Okay.
because you waited so long.
And does that date work okay for hot head nod? All right, so.
Sorry.
Let's continue, the motion to continue to the April 17th meeting.
I'll second it.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? No, all right. With that, we continue the meeting to April 17th, and we move to the last item, which I believe is just adjournment. Make sure nothing's hidden. Yep, and we adjourn. Thank you, everyone.